Going to get started. I'm going to call the meeting to order. The North Hunterdon-Voorhees Regional High School District Board of Education meeting on Tuesday, January 20th, 2026 is now called to order. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act and JSA 10-4-6, adequate notice giving the time, date, location, the extent known, the agenda of this meeting was sent to the Hunterdon County Democrat, Star-Ledger, and Courier News on January 7th, 2026, and published on January 12th, 2026. In addition, notice of this meeting has been posted at the North Hunterdon High School and Voorhees High School, provided to the municipal clerks of Bethlehem Township, California Borough, Town of Clinton, Clinton Township, Franklin Township, Glen Gardner Borough, Hampton Borough, Highbridge Borough, Lebanon Township, Tewksbury Township, and Union Township, as well as other interested parties, and posted on the district website. Fire exits are located in the direction indicated. That's my little stewardess bit. If alerted to fire, please move in a calm and orderly fashion to the nearest smoke-free exit. Restrooms are located through the doors behind this desk and to the right as indicated. At this time, please silence all cell phones. Before we go to roll call, I do just want to remind folks of our mission statement. The North Hunterdon-Voorhees Regional High School District empowers all students through innovative and personalized learning to achieve their full potential, embrace lifelong learning, and contribute responsibly to a changing world. Katie.
Ms. Ayers?
Here.
Mr. Chapman?
Here.
Mr. Hanley?
Here.
Ms. Hintz?
Here.
Mr. Lordy? Mr. Matthews?
Here.
Mr. McIsaac?
Here.
Mr. Morgan?
Here.
Ms. Reyes? Mr. Spanton?
Here.
And Ms. Stein?
Here.
Okay, we'll now have the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome to our first working session. If you recall, now that we are going to have working sessions and action sessions, the working session is operating more or less in lieu of our traditional committee structure. As you know, I've been soliciting feedback from everyone, and thank you for everything I've received so far. That information will hopefully kind of help us give shape to these meetings and proceedings going forward, how we'll do certain reports. But this is really the opportunity for us to have the discussion about the items on the agendas so that when we meet again, and in this case that will be simply next week, we're able to act upon many of those things. This is sort of the opportunity to raise questions, deliberate, and so that we can go into next week's votes with the information that we may need at our disposal. And I know we have a lot of new folks on the board, or folks, once again, rejoining boards. So throughout this meeting and probably subsequent meetings, I might emphasize just some procedural things or ask Katie or Rich to do so, just so folks are getting acclimated to the flow of that work, even though this structure in this meeting is new to us as well. So one of the things you'll notice as being different, there's really no votes being called. On next week's meeting, you'll see things like voice votes or calls for a motion and a second. Procedurally, we can just talk through these things, and as I said, we'll get some shape to that by the various reports that come out. But first on there is the minutes. We have our minutes from December 16th, 2025, our regular board meeting. So in that case, some folks who weren't yet on the board. And then we have our January 6th minutes, which were our reorganization board meeting minutes. Generally, and I know this question has come up a few times, you more or less might abstain from voting on the minutes if it was a meeting that you were not in attendance on. Or you were not yet on the board, but certainly you can feel free to ask questions about any of the minutes. So is there anything just on minutes that anyone would like to discuss at this point? Okay. Well, certainly do continue to kind of look those over, and then we'll be taking the vote on that next week. Which brings us to the Chief School Administrator's report, so I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Burgess.
So, sorry, Brian, just filed something.
Okay.
So we'll obviously have minutes for this meeting next meeting.
Correct?
So maybe we just keep minutes in the voting meeting? Like, maybe it's a way to lighten the agenda a little bit from this meeting is to just do always, because minutes is usually.
Procedural, right.
And because we'll have to go through the same process, if you have any questions
Right.
about it, because this meeting's minutes will be in there as well.
I don't know, and I guess maybe a question for Katie, now that some of these meetings might happen a week upon each other, I don't know if that poses any complications in terms of getting things finalized for
I think I
action.
would suggest that the meetings from tonight's meeting and the minutes from tonight's meeting, as well as the executive session minutes, we decide to bring that to February
Okay,
because of just the time constraint of trying to prepare them in time.
Gotcha.
To bring them to the board.
so everything will be the month before happening in review at these sessions, and
Yeah.
what's happening this month will be on next
Yeah.
month. Brian, does that make sense, just from a
Yeah.
procedural?
Yeah, it does.
Okay,
Everything that's on here, this is essentially the agenda that we're.
going to see next
We're
week.
gonna see
So there's
next
going to
week,
be
okay.
action to be taken and votes to be taken on.
Okay.
So yeah, nothing will fundamentally change, and I guess in theory,
It could.
what's that?
It could.
Things, right, something
Could
could
add
change if there was an emergent topic or something like that, or if there was an emergent need that would require action next week. Okay. Anything else on that? All right, Rich?
So on that token, thank you, Brendan. For the Chief School Administrator's report, the committee as a whole is going to be limited as to what I typically will report out because most of the time it's the events that are happening at school and things that I want the board to be aware of. And I would, instead of doing that this month or this week and then doing it a week later, because there might not be a lot that changes in a week, I decided to do it just in that 1 month. So I'll do it at the regular meeting like I typically would do. But there's a couple things I just wanted to bring to your attention. So the HIB incidences, we did link on here, so if there are any questions, those would be the things that there will be a motion in a second and a board vote on for next month, so we thought that was important to have there. The first one, 5.1, report on harassment, intimidation, and bullying, that usually up until the day of the board meeting, where, anything that is closed, we're bringing to you so that I'm reporting it to you for the first time. So that's when you usually hear me say, we had 2 unfounded and 1 founded HIB this month. And then you have a month to deliberate that, and then you vote on it the following month. So just procedurally, I wanted to make sure everybody, especially all the new board members, understood I bring it to the board has a month then to deliberate on it or ask questions, and then they vote on it to affirm it at the following meeting. And the ones that are listed as HIB incidents that you will actually see in the agenda, those are the ones you'll be voting on.
So then maybe a clarifying question, sort of in the same spirit for the new folks. For folks who were not yet seated on the board, so these were incidents from December, would they be in an appropriate position to abstain from that, not having been members at the time that that report was submitted?
That is a good question. I mean, it's something that happened from a school administrative level that we're bringing to the board for action now, so
Okay.
it's not like they missed
Okay,
the information is still accessible to them, so unless
yeah,
Bill.
Yeah,
your opinion on it.
if I may, just to expand a little bit upon Dr. Berjak's comment, the board's vote is affirming receipt of the incident in question. Has that been the board's understanding? Or is it actually affirming what the finding was? Because the board has the right to affirm, reject, or modify
Correct.
the finding. And so to that extent, we just want to clarify that now, especially for new board
It
members.
was my understanding that the board is affirming, rejecting, or modifying the superintendent's recommendation to the board,
Okay.
right? Which if I'm recommending that the board, approve this, or affirm, the HIB cases, I wouldn't bring it to you if I didn't expect that the board would affirm it, but if there was a reason to reject it or modify it, then that would be the deliberation that we would
Okay.
have, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and we traditionally, you presented these in December, so we've had a month.
right.
And now we're gonna vote on them when we vote next time, so that'll be the same process.
And there's a structure to it, and if you can't find it, let me know and I can help you, but there is under our board shared drive, there's a BOE resources folder, and in there is a HIB folder, and in there you'll see, we try to categorize it by dates and years and things like that, but there's some, limited details on what this HIP case is about. So if you read that and said, I have further questions, that's your opportunity between those 2 months to, contact me, Brendan, and we can get you answers.
So then I was just confirming, Phil, your sense is that even though members might be newly seated now, it is okay for them to affirm
Yes.
receipt of those findings? Okay.
Primarily because new board members have the same access to the
Yep.
same information
Okay.
that everyone else has. And as Dr. Burjak's just informed us, the level of detail in those reports, while it allows the board enough information to vote, it is not the same level of detail if, for example, there was an appeal of an HIB matter. So,
Okay.
absolutely.
We also didn't, to use these as examples, we didn't deliberate on the HIB incidents when they reported in December 16.
Right.
We didn't deliberate them because
Yeah.
you just told us there's 2.
Founded or
or whatever
non-founded.
it was. And it isn't until now that or next week, that we would vote or deliberate if we had to, if we had questions or something.
And because of the nature of a HIP case, that would be something, the deliberation would have to happen in executive session, or, if individual board members had questions, I would try to answer those between the meetings.
Okay.
The monthly school reports are there, we typically don't spend a lot of time on those, but I did want to, one thing I was hoping we could change up a little bit, in the policy committee, when we had a policy committee, we would always talk about our attendance rates. And the reason we did that was because we adopted a new attendance policy this year, and we wanted to see what the effect of that was. I thought it'd be appropriate for me to just mention, as the school reports also have attendance on it, to just mention that here, and then it sort of separates it from the policy. But the rationale is that we have this new policy that we're monitoring. And so for December, we actually, North Hunterdon had a slight decrease. It went from 1,597 incidences in 2024 to 1,576 incidences. So not a big difference, about a 2% decrease. But we're still, year-to-date, 6.3% absenteeism, whereas we were at 14.7 prior to this policy. So we're seeing a significant decrease there. Voorhees is really rocking it on the attendance side. They went from 1,912 in the month of December of 2024 to 896 in the month of December in 2025. So that's a 53% reduction. Their year-to-date percent absent rate is 3.9%. And just to put that in context, they were at 22.7. So they were much higher than North, and now they're much lower. So between the two of them, and again, these are going to fluctuate throughout the year, so I don't want to, the data point at this time of year isn't something to celebrate or worry about yet, but it's just something I want to keep you informed on monthly as we go through, so we're monitoring the effectiveness and seeing if that makes a difference.
Let's go in the right direction.
Yeah, it's going in the right direction, perfect. So, and that's all I have, so.
So, a question on that, the flip side of that policy change was, so it seems to be working with its intended consequences. The flip side was, were we going to see a lot of pushback from parents? There was initial pushback. Would you
I have not,
characterize
it hasn't come to my desk, which means that it probably, the pushback has lessened. Principals were here, I would probably ask them, but I will ask them tomorrow at our admin meeting. But I think I haven't heard of anybody talking about it. I think it became the norm now, and now people are used to it. And again, we increased the amount of absences that you're allowed to have before there's any kind of consequences from 12 to 16, so that gave everyone 4 sort of more freebies. But then we didn't use, certain excuses to excuse those absences.
so maybe the cow hasn't come home yet?
Yeah, there's going to be, again, this is not going to be a panacea, but it is, so far the data is showing that we're moving in the right direction.
I think there was a follow-up communication after it was first announced that kind of clarified things, so I think that might have quelled some of the
Okay.
concern.
Yeah.
At least that's what I heard from parents.
Good, that's good to know. Yeah, yeah, there was a little bit of noise in the beginning, and I think that's why we sent out that second clarification.
Are there any unexpected consequences or downsides of the policy that you've heard? Like something we didn't anticipate? I mean, it's great that it's moving in the right direction, but I'm just curious if,
I mean, I have not, I've heard, people saying, well, if my kid's sick, I have to send him to school, but I don't think people are sending their kids to school if they're really sick, it might be if you wake up with sniffles and maybe you used to stay home and now you go. But we also haven't seen any kind of outbreaks either.
Well, right.
So,
I mean,
obviously
fingers
that would be,
crossed.
if we had something like that, that might be a spotlight to say, well, this was a negative consequence of it, but nothing of that nature either.
I also have a quick question. If that topic is done? On the page 2 of your report is the the chart of the total enrollment.
Yes.
And you probably have this all the time, but there's multiple other columns, the VOTEC shared, full-time academies, Somerset. Is the total, the sum of, include those things, or those are all adding up to the total attendance?
So the totals that you see under total enrollment,
Mm-hmm.
that includes all of those students as well,
Okay.
but we also break
Okay.
those out, yes.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Anything else?
I have a quick question about suspension report. And I know it's not necessarily a fair comparison, but I've looked back at like a trailing number of these reports, and it seems, from my quick glance, that North's numbers are way higher.
Yeah.
And is wondering if it's a concern of actual behavior, or is the enforcement at a different level, and has that been looked at?
It has. So that has been a question that came up probably a couple of years ago, and what we're doing is we're actually tracking the incidences now. I've had the principals' offices keeping a spreadsheet that I have access to look at why students are being suspended and what the consequences are. And it really comes down to there's less incidences at Voorhees right now. There are months that are anomalies, and you'll see there's a month, where North with their population should always be a little higher, right, if things were, mathematically correct. But they're significantly higher right now. And so mathematically it doesn't make sense. But there are months where mathematically it doesn't make sense that Voorhees actually has more than North. So it is a point in time. I think, there's different issues at both schools. While the schools are very similar, there are some differences. But it is something we're aware of and we do keep track of.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to move to the school board president's report. There's a few items here. One is the New Jersey School Board Recognition Month, so that'll be a resolution we'll pass next week to sort of recognize the work that we are all doing. As much of a pat on the back, you've got it right there. It's about as much as we can do. Right. We do have, so the school board representatives, delegates, positions, vacancies. So I know I'm in the process of soliciting input around the positions that folks are indicating where they would like us to have connections, whether it's things like PTA or booster kind of liaisons. Certainly Tara is acting in our county capacity and had noted the availability to the delegate assembly. It's my hope that as all the feedback comes in to sort of put together the consensus of what folks are saying. I know I shared that, I think, with you in a way where you can see the comments. And I think there is some emerging consensus about some of those things, but my hope is to sort of consolidate that a little bit and see what the appetite is for folks to fill some of the roles. Certainly the delegate assembly one is one that we know is open. So if it is something that you think you might be interested in, just let Tara know and we can move forward with that. Just any thoughts or in the moment in terms of those types of positions that folks are suggesting?
Can you elaborate more on what that delegate position is?
The delegate meets twice a year in June and November, and so all of the counties and each school district has a delegate voting. In March, school boards will send out a call for resolutions, and then they'll be submitted. And then the ones that move forward to be voted on will go into the addendum for that meeting. It's down at Mercer County Community College. It's on a Saturday. It's from 9 to 12. They give you a nice breakfast. And then they go through all of the workings of school boards. They'll have a legislative review, and then we'll have voting on the various resolutions. Usually they'll take a segment of the policies, and that's what's going to be worked on that year. So I'm not sure what's coming up. And then the same thing will happen again in November. So But it's exciting and very informative, and I highly recommend somebody taking the position. I'll keep doing it. I've been doing it for the last few years. I really enjoy it, but it's real worth the time. You'll get all of the resolutions ahead of time so you can read through them, and it's quite interesting to hear other school districts. People will come up and ask questions. They'll change the verbiage on things, so it's engaging. So it's a really neat position, and if you're like it's a learning also at the same time. So
Thanks.
yeah.
All right. Any other questions just on those potential positions and or vacancies? All right, the next item is a conference report from school boards. Rich is in the process of he did make copies this past fall. I did attend the school boards convention, and I put together some notes, or I will say AI put together some notes, and I sort of say that right up front. This is a Gemini summary where I took my notes and put it in. So Rich is going to give that out to you. I'll just kind of highlight some of the themes, and you can certainly read it at your leisure. I think it's sort of noteworthy that the themes and ideas that are represented here, I think, align very nicely with some of the things we're doing in our strategic plan. Pretty much if you go to an educational conference these days, you are inundated with everything AI in terms of its integration and its instruction. And the promotion of AI literacy, and teachers are in the process of really getting versed in that. So that was a very large theme. When talking about things like challenges in policy, many districts, one of the decisions that districts have to decide is whether or not they want a policy or if they want guidance. And districts seem to go both ways. I think the critique of policy is that policy is more formal and the field of AI is changing so rapidly. So something that you put in policy next month may be outdated a month later. So a lot of districts are sort of deferring to guidance. I know we have the committee working this year about sort of the future forward learning with AI. So I would imagine guidance coming out of that. But I know teachers have been having to deal with intellectual honesty issues, but really more about just understanding what the tools can do and discovering ways themselves to use the tools in ways that aren't inhibiting students' critical or creative thinking, but also teaching kids how to ethically use these tools. We as a district have Gemini sort of embedded. Our students have access to it. There's a number of tools that go along with that that we'll probably increasingly use in our work as well. So again, very timely as far as that goes. Another big emphasis was school culture and wellness. Some of these presentations that I was seeing might have been skewed a little more towards elementary, but really talking about the various services that schools partner with to see about student wellness or to learn more about student wellness, and some of the initiatives to just sort of track wellness or engage families in the educational process. Everything from, zones where kids can go and regulate themselves. Another one, future ready skills is always sort of a big talk. I'll pretty much say for as long as I've been in education, everything has been about 21st century skills. And now that we're a quarter century into the 21st century, I think the conversation continues and it's only accelerating. But a lot of times, this leads to a lot of conversations about what's called like the portrait of a graduate. And as students are going through their four-year experience here, that could be a conversation of what is it that we want to see our students leaving their time here with, be it leadership, be it certain kinds of authentic learning experiences. And again, that kind of work with the future forward, or I can't remember what the framework is called, learning forward or future ready framework. That will ultimately be given some shape this year as well. And then the last one is sort of about leadership, advocacy, and community engagement. And that's everything from the way that you're growing capacity in your own district. Dr. Burgess has shared a little bit about the Emerging Leaders program that was started this year, and the ability of a program like that to create capacity within a district for more leadership opportunities or initiatives that folks are leading, to everything from our ability as citizens to reach out and engage in the legislation that affects schools and our work, and not discounting that power that we have both as citizens and then collectively as a board. So that's kind of a quick overview of that. Certainly feel free to look at it. Ask me if you have any questions, or if anything comes up next week, we could talk about it further. I believe we'll be having some presentations coming up by Rich. Yep. That will give us some context for all of that. If you recall, there was mention at the prior meeting about the Hunterdon County Unsung Heroes Award Ceremony, March 4th. We would just need to RSVP by February 4th if you plan to attend.
And I highly recommend you all attending. It's a great session. And then the ASA this year gave a donation, so we're going to have the 9th through 12th grade in a pool for a scholarship, and the 5th through 8th graders of the Unsung Heroes, and they'll each get 250 scholarships, so that's something new this year.
That's right. Next week, we will have our board training, so just note that our meeting starts at 6 p.m. at the office here. We have our county rep who will be doing our ethics training, as well as some of the other questions that filtered my way through the survey about sort of a quick overview of Robert's Rules of Order and just explaining the different kinds of votes, whether you're voting no or abstaining, sort of the contexts or situations that you might do that and just what they are. But certainly, if there are other questions that you have coming into that meeting and on the presentation, you'll have an opportunity to ask those next week. Any questions on any of those items? So our next order of business is our interview of a candidate for the unexpired California Borough Tewksbury Township Board vacancy. We've had one candidate apply, Ms. Meryl Mezzacapa. And Meryl, I'll just ask if you could come forward to the podium. We do have a few questions that we ask of board candidates or folks applying. And basically, our process would be, this is an opportunity for us to get to know you a little bit. Obviously, the public has an opportunity to hear. There's public comment even tonight if folks were to, articulate questions or wonderings that they might have. Later on in the meeting, we'll have an opportunity to go into executive and discuss a little bit, and we would look to come back and make action or have action on that this evening. So welcome. Thank you for coming out. I'm going to put the first two questions together, and it's sort of, what's your interest in becoming a board member, and what is the skill set that you feel you specifically are bringing to us?
Sure. I value in education, public education. I think the high school years are extremely important for students, academic readiness, social, emotional development. I think a thriving district is essential to supporting our communities. A high school district, public high school district, is a bedrock of the community. I would love to be a part of the Board of Education to, in some way, make an impact on the educational opportunities for youth in our community, and to hopefully in some way help keep this district strong. I know that it is a strong district, but maybe impart things that can even make it better. In terms of my skills, I would say probably my strongest skills for this role would be my ability to synthesize complex information, to summarize it and to bring it to a logical point, to communicate, to work professionally with colleagues. I would be looking to work to bring consensus where possible, although I understand that sometimes consensus is not always possible. But I think being respectful of diverse opinions is important. And I think hearing each other, being a good listener, and also a strong advocate for what one thinks is right is important. I've certainly utilized those skills throughout my professional career. I'm also used to making important decisions, often around emotionally charged stakeholders. I work where I can to try to bring calm, if possible. I also have experience making difficult decisions and explaining them to various stakeholders who might not necessarily agree and feel invested in one way or another. That's something I really had to do throughout my career. Somewhat less relevant, but I'll mention it. I did teach constitutional law, Fourth Amendment constitutional law, to police officers for a large part of my career, and I created those materials. So I have some teaching experience, although I think that is a much easier teaching job than the teaching job for the educators going on here at the high school level. My sister is a high school Spanish teacher in Westfield. She's been there now almost 20 years. So she has my ear, of course. So I do have a little bit of that perspective as well. I've grown up here. My family moved to Tewksbury Township in the early 1970s when there were, barely any roads, really. Bought an acre of land and built a house. And I attended those schools, the elementary school and the middle school, and I also attended Voorhees High School myself quite a long time ago. Have pretty much lived in Hunterdon County my entire life. I left to become educated after high school, but came back, lived in Clinton for a little while in an apartment in Clinton. When I was newly married, my husband and I lived in Alexandria Township in Hunterdon County, and then we moved back to Tewksbury Township in 2008 before my son. I have one child, a son, before he started kindergarten. So he went to the Tewksbury Elementary School and middle school, and he attended Voorhees High School. He graduated in 2022.
You've been actually touching upon a few of the themes that are on here, so I'm not going to ask you the same question, but I'll combine a couple of more. If you could talk a little bit of, what do you see as the role of a school board member, and, how is that potentially an extension of some of your previous community or nonprofit experience?
So the role of the board, it's my understanding, is to work to set policy for the school district and to work to hold the superintendent accountable for carrying out that policy, in a nutshell.
And is there anything, as you're looking at this opportunity, is there anything in particular that you would like to see strengthened in our district? Having had a son go through it, being a resident, some of the things that you're interested in as topics or focus?
I don't have a formed agenda really coming here. My son had a great experience at Voorhees. Back then, were there things that I think could have been better? Sure. Were there things I think were great? Absolutely. There's no representative for Tewksbury County. There's Andrea, but there's a need right now. I feel like I can come at it with heart and really try to do a good job. I'm in a place in my life where I have a little bit more time. If I were still serving as an assistant prosecutor, I would not be able to do this. I can now. So it's really just more a desire to serve the community in general.
And you sort of hinted at the last one, your awareness of the time, training commitments, and ethics law disclosures required for school board membership. Is there anything more that you would share on that, but you seem to have a sense of that?
Well, I understand the time commitment minimally is you meet 2 evenings a month. My evenings a month are pretty occupied because I serve a leadership role on another board. It's not that I don't have any free nights, but I'm required to be at those meetings because I'm president of that board. we don't meet on Tuesdays. So that's a plus. And I do have some ability to control that schedule. I'm hearing you just sitting today. Obviously, there's other things that you're inviting the board members to partake in. And I would like to become informed and involved as I can. I have a little bit more flexibility during the day. I have a little bit more flexibility on the weekends. I heard Ms. Hintz talking about an opportunity that required, I think it was said, two weekends a year. So that's my understanding.
Anything else that you'd like to share with us at this point?
I mean, I don't think so. I welcome questions.
That sort of was the interview.
Okay.
So thank you for coming out. Thank you for applying. As I shared, our process will be, at some point, we'll go into executive. We had your materials already, so thank you for your letter and your resume. So we'll have an opportunity to discuss, come out and act on that on the other side of executive, and certainly you're welcome to stay. If you're unable to, we understand, and we would get back in touch with you regarding the next steps.
Sure. I'll let the superintendent get back in touch with me. It's my understanding you might be occupied for a while in the back, so I'll go home.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to our opportunity for public comment. During this portion of the meeting, the public is invited to address the Board of Education with comments. You are requested to sign the register provided and state your name, municipality or residence, group affiliation if applicable, and direct your comments to the school board president. While all comments will be considered by the Board of Education and a response may be forthcoming if and when appropriate, individual school board members may not respond to the speakers at the time of their appearance. The public comment period will be a maximum of 30 minutes in length unless there are unusual circumstances. You'll be allocated 3 minutes to speak, and no one will be permitted to speak more than once on the same topic until all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. Please keep your comments respectful and non-defamatory, and maintain the level of decorum appropriate for a public meeting where students may be present and in the audience. So we welcome anyone from the public who would care to speak at this time.
Good evening, board members. I'm Amy Barrett. I'm a resident of Highbridge and a retired English teacher who's passionate about reading. I'm here to remind you that the Freedom to Read law took effect in December 2025, and you need a library book policy and a library book complaint policy that comply with this law. The NJDOE published model policy templates last summer. Your current NJSBA policies, which are Media Center Library 6163.1 and Community Complaints and Inquiries 1312, do not comply or do not fully comply. Specifically, the criteria for selecting library materials are too vague, and the review process for handling concerns about library materials is not described at all in your current policies. In addition, according to the Freedom to Read law, your policies need to prohibit exclusion of books based on the origin, background, or views of the author, and protect library staff from civil or criminal liability. The good news is that until very recently, North Hunterdon-Voorhees had a model library resource materials policy and regulation, which was 2530 in your old numbering, and a model public complaint and book reconsideration process in Policy and Regulation 9130. These policies and regulations served you well during the 2021 to 2022 and 2024 book challenges. They included detailed criteria for selecting library books and specific steps for reconsidering a book that are compliant with the new law. The previous North Hunterdon-Voorhees library policy has been used as a model for other New Jersey schools. I'm asking the board to reinstate the old policies and regulations 2530 and 9130 in place of the vague, inadequate NJSBA policies 6163.1, and 1312. You'll need to add the statement about protecting library staff from civil and criminal liability. Readopting these policies will not only comply with the new freedom to read law, but also put you in a stronger position to respond to any future book challenges. Thank you for listening and for serving on the board.
Any additional public comment this evening? Okay. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll move to curriculum, instruction, and technology. Mr. Brown. So this is sort of an opportunity. In the past, when we had the committee meetings, there would be that monthly curriculum committee meeting. This may morph into the curriculum director's report, where Rich would report out on the same things we would do in committee, and then if there are action or other items required, that would follow up in the very next week. So Rich, I'll hand things over to you.
All right, thank you. Well, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay, there we go. All right, well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk with you today, and welcome to all of the new board members. It'll be great working with you. So as Brendan said, my name is Rich Byrne. I'm the Director of Curriculum Articulation and Student Achievement. If you remember, we went through strategic planning recently. So one of the committees that came out as a result of the strategic planning was the Future Ready Steering Committee. So what I wanted to do today from the curriculum perspective was give you an update on what that committee has done so far this school year. I'll be completely transparent from the beginning. What I did was I took the agendas that we had from the committee, put them into Gemini, and asked it to generate a slide presentation to give the board an overview of what we've been doing. So with a few modifications, this is what it presented. So those are some of the things that we're able to do with this generative AI. So the district goal that we're working off of for curriculum is that by the end of the school year, the district will successfully develop and begin implementation of a future-ready learning framework, leading to increased integration of AI tools in instruction and learning, and enhanced authentic learning opportunities across all grade levels, as measured by curriculum documentation, teacher professional development records, and student engagement metrics. So really what we're trying to do is equip our educators and students with the critical thinking skills required to thrive in an AI integrated future, while maintaining obviously that integrity and privacy standards. So this roadmap gives you an idea of what we've done so far in the committee this year. So back in October, we started drafting a needs assessment and also drafting definitions for the two key things that we were defining were AI-powered instruction and authentic learning. So once we developed drafts and got feedback on those, we were able to administer the surveys for the needs assessment. We gave those to parents, students, and staff members in November, and then we also finalized our definitions, and I'll share part of the definitions in a little bit. Once the surveys were administered, the committee reviewed those survey results, analyzed them, and identified some action steps based on that information. And then we began recruiting teachers for a pilot program to integrate AI into the curriculum. So now in January, here we are giving the update, and also I want to show you about the resource library that we started to put together. Yes? Sure, no, feel free, sure.
Can you remind us, not names necessarily, but who is the committee it's made up of?
So I'm
Yourself.
chairing the committee, and then we have teachers and administrators from across the district. So we have about a dozen people. A nice split between the two schools, and also a nice representative of the different departments as well.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. And yeah, feel free to ask questions throughout. So the three groups that we did survey were our staff members, our students, and our parents. And we tried to look at things like their current comfort levels with AI, professional development for our educators, from our student perspective, what they value or what they see about AI, and parents trying to get information about where they are with AI and where they think that their children are with AI as well. So I want to give you some highlights from the surveys that we did. First off, with our staff members, 85% of our staff members who responded agreed or strongly agreed that they have a basic understanding of generative AI. 52% of staff members felt prepared to guide students on the ethical and effective use of AI. 61% of staff members already use AI tools to increase their professional productivity, such as drafting emails, creating lesson outlines, generating rubrics. And 54% of staff members saw AI as a potential tool to enhance student learning and personalized instruction. So that was the educator part to it. We saw a lot of similarities between the three different groups. With students, only 2.2% of them reported using AI daily for schoolwork. It's interesting when we ask later on what they believe their classmates, how often their classmates are using it, but only 2% reported using it daily for schoolwork. 71% of them reported using it rarely or never. Now, granted, not every single student responded to this survey. We had I think it was around 20% of our students did respond to it, so a pretty significant amount though. In contrast, 38% believe their classmates used AI daily or often to cheat, with often being several times a week. 57% of students reported being either not familiar at all or only slightly familiar with AI literacy concepts such as bias, hallucinations, and prompt engineering. And we asked the students what they thought about the teachers' expertise on AI. 32% believed most teachers are very knowledgeable about it, while 50% believed that some are and some aren't knowledgeable about AI. And in looking at the parent survey, about half of the parents, about 55% of the parents across both schools, supported or strongly supported AI integration, viewing it as an unavoidable tool for future job market readiness. 40% of the parents identified as being very familiar and use AI tools themselves. 28%, and I like these different categories that we gave, 28% reported being not familiar at all, heard the name but don't know what it does, or slightly familiar with how generative AI functions. So I think that was an important part for us to realize, that 28% of our parents really do not have that basic understanding of what AI is. So the committee feels like part of our job is to educate the parents about these tools as well. The majority of parents, 84% of parents, were unsure or believe their child does not use AI for negative reasons, yet they recognize its value for positive reasons, like summarizing long readings or acting as a virtual tutor. So a lot of valuable information from the surveys that we gathered. So I mentioned that we then developed some definitions. We first defined authentic learning, and it's actually like a 2-page definition with various examples, but the core of it is that authentic learning is an instructional approach where students actively engage with real-world problems and challenges that have personal, cultural, and disciplinary relevance, leading to the creation of tangible, useful products or solutions that are shared with an audience beyond the classroom. Authentic learning initially blends digital tools with hands-on, tactile experiences and print resources, mirroring how professionals work across both physical and digital environments. And it's that hands-on, tactile experience part that came out loud and clear throughout the strategic planning. So that is definitely something that was at the forefront as we're developing the definition for this authentic learning. We identified some of the core characteristics of this authentic learning as being real-world relevance, the multiple modalities, active and sustained inquiry, tangible and valuable outcomes, authentic audiences, student voice and choice, and using assessment as coaching. So we're pretty proud of the definitions that we've developed for authentic learning. And then for AI-powered instruction, the main part of our definition for that is that we define AI-powered instruction as the strategic use of generative tools to augment, not replace, the teacher's role. And we thought that was so important, that this is to augment, not replace anyone. The focus areas include personalization of learning paths, rapid feedback loops, and automating administrative workflows to maximize one-on-one teacher-student interaction time. So we feel pretty confident with our definitions, and we're at the stage now where we will be sharing these with staff members as we move forward, especially with the pilot group that I'll be talking about in a second. So some of the things that really came out in the surveys were about privacy concerns. Our approach is going to be with Gemini, which is Google's generative AI product. And when we use Gemini in-house, connected to our school accounts, it does not leave our school district. It stays within our network. It's not being used to train their models or anything like that. Just like students have their emails, we are able to monitor their usage with generative AI. Basically, they're saved all like emails are. You can go back to them. We can go back to them. So that's why we're focusing on using Gemini, because of the security and the privacy and protection within our district. We are also, for any other AI tools that staff members would like to use, we have created a vetting form that the committee will use to review those AI tools to see if it's something that we should implement. So we do have, and I'll show you our website in a second, which we haven't published yet, but I just want to give you a sneak preview of it. It has a place where staff members can submit an AI tool that they're interested in using, so that the committee can vet it for things like security to make sure it would be something that we want to add. So I wanted to pause for a second and give you a quote here. And the reason why I gave a quote from this particular book is because we did order copies of this book. It's by John Warner. It's called More Than Words, and it's subtitled How to Think About Writing in the Age of AI. And we did purchase copies of this book for everyone on that committee and also for all English teachers in the district, because we think it is important as we look at integrating generative AI into the curriculum to take a step back and look at what writing we're doing and why we're doing that writing. And the quote that I pulled out from this book that I thought was so important to keep in mind is that to abandon all writing to generative AI is to abandon thinking itself. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that as we're looking to integrate generative AI into the curriculum, we're not using it to replace writing. Writing is a very important part of our curriculum. It's a very important part of what students do and what adults do as well. And one of the things that we're trying to impress upon students throughout this integration of AI is the thinking that happens while you're writing. Many of us can probably relate that as we sit down to write something, what we end up writing about is something that we never thought that we were going to write about as we started. And that's one of the things that this book is so good at explaining, is the process of writing. When we talk about generative AI, we talk so much about the final product, but it's the process that is so important throughout this process. So we are not at all abandoning the process of writing, because it is so important to enhance our thinking and learning. So I mentioned our pilot program. I also want to, before I get into the pilot program, I want to point out the picture on this slide. And I know it's a little difficult to see, but initially when I asked Gemini to create these slides presentations, the picture that was on this slide was of a robot standing at the front board with chalk writing on the board, and students sitting very quietly like zombies behind computers. And that is not at all what we want. So I did ask Gemini to please replace that picture with a teacher, get rid of robots. I said there can be computers there, but students should be actively learning. I should have said that they should have been teenagers. We are a high school district. The student looks like he's in second grade here, but still, I think it more fully captures of what we're looking to do, rather than a robot teaching our students behind Chromebooks. So with this pilot program, we have recruited departments of teachers to volunteer to teach, or to integrate AI tools in controlled settings. So we do have 6 teachers from across the district. It's a nice balance between the 2 schools who are, we have our first meeting at the end of the month so that we can work on integrating AI tools into the curriculum for those different subject areas in which they teach. So we're looking at doing this from January through March, and then using the remainder of the year to survey students and to begin to revise the curriculum based on the findings from that. So we're excited to move forward with the pilot program with the new teachers, the teachers that have volunteered to participate in this program.
Rich?
Yes.
On the 6 teachers, what are the disciplines? Like, or is it, what
It's
subjects? Is
We
it
have
a
a
mix?
couple of math teachers. We have a social studies teacher. We have actually a member of the child study team as well. We didn't get an English teacher. I keep on trying to talk to some English teachers about volunteering, and so, but we do have a mix of different subject areas.
Thank you.
Sure. So I mentioned that one of the tasks that this committee has done is to work on a resource library. And I mentioned that we have a forum to vet the tools that people suggest. So I just want to take a second to show you now, I am not in any way a coder, but again, with generative AI, I was able to say what we're looking to create, and I put in the resources that we want to include in there for now. So the committee gave feedback that it would be nice, besides having the tools, just to have an overview of the purpose of this. So we added, the reason for this resource library. But then we have, you can filter it with and we haven't vetted any of these yet. These are just examples that are in here, although I think these are pretty good resources. But you can filter it if you're looking specifically for AI tools. We have something to get started with Gemini. If you're looking specifically for lesson templates, we have something for students to self-reflect on their AI use. If you're looking for best practices guides, we have, is this what you distributed, the profile of an AI-ready graduate?
Might have been.
Okay.
They probably alluding to it
Right.
because I think it's sort of out there in the ecosystem.
So the teaching responsible use of AI. So we have some samples in here that the committee will be evaluating. But like I also mentioned, we have a place on here for staff members to submit a resource. So when they do that, they just fill out a Google form, what it is, and they give us some information about it, the link, and then the committee will review that. So we haven't linked this on our website yet because first the committee at the end of the month is going to be reviewing the resources that we already have on here, in addition to some that the committee is curious about adding. So once we review that, then we'll get this website out to everybody. So that's everything. I wanted to finish with this quote, and actually I have this quote at the beginning of our next committee meeting because I want to make sure that we emphasize this throughout the whole process. And Edward Hopper, if you're familiar, he's a painter, and he said, "No amount of skillful invention can replace the essential element of imagination." And I want to make sure that we remember that throughout this whole process, that we're not using generative AI to replace imagination. It is a tool that we can use, and it can help us complete some tasks, but at the heart of everything that we do is our imagination, and we can't lose sight of that. So, do you have any questions about the committee or where we're headed?
So you talked about one of the things was when a new resource is recommended is making sure it kind of meets some confidentiality and security.
Right.
So is there somebody on the committee, or how do we make sure, I mean, it's just not,
Guillermo is our expert
Okay.
on the committee to
Okay.
look at those kinds of things. Yes.
okay.
I was just wondering, what sort of guardrails are there in terms of, I know when students are on the network and go to a site on Chrome that might be, or Google that's not allowed, there's a flag or there's a warning that says you can't go there. Are there going to be similar guardrails and, reporting if something like that happens?
Yeah, that's why we want to stick to a Google product, because we do monitor all of the Google products, so it falls right within that. Yes. Yes.
So I want to commend the list of core characteristics that the committee came up with, because that to me sort of signals that they're not going to lose sight of those very important things in all of this work going forward. And while AI is sort of the exciting thing of the moment and certainly something that, I'm steeped in with work as well, those characteristics I feel are probably more important in terms of what sort of curriculum and learning ultimately gets shaped for the student experience. And I would certainly encourage, as any sort of curricular revision goes forward, you've certainly got the beginning of implementing some AI application. I would encourage you to take a look at curriculum through those lenses to say, where is that authentic learning? Where are we affording students' voice and choice? Where do they have agency and inquiry to sort of problem solve or identify and explore those real world problems? That to me is probably almost the harder work of designing and engaging curriculum. Certainly AI will be there as a tool that students can use, but that's going to be the stuff that I think engages them, that sort of excites your teachers, and sort of enables them to create really kind of dynamic learning experiences for kids. Being familiar with things like AP Seminar and AP Research, you see the kinds of questions and ideas and topics that students explore when they're sort of given license to do so. And extending from that, as you sort of think about that framework, where, not losing sight of where the teacher agency is in that too, because all of this involves experimentation, risk-taking, the willingness to try things that might not work, and then to have the support of the administration to try things that might not work and learn from those things going forward. So I certainly want to commend those characteristics. The other thing and you alluded to it, not wanting to lose sight of sort of the human in the loop, the human learning, the creative and critical thinking. And even as folks are embedding AI tools and practices, being mindful of everything from screen time to student face-to-face interaction. And obviously we have new laws coming with cell phones next year. But student wellness, I think, is sort of rooted in the relationship in all of that. I think you're on the right track in terms of shaping the guidance. I think some of the feedback that you've gotten indicates that kids and parents are not fully sure yet, what these things are and how to go about using them. In terms of parent presentations, having done a few myself, you might want to lean into opportunities where you already have parents in the building, back to school nights and things like that, to do informative AI sessions. Folks will be curious just to see what tools their students have or what they can do. I know I would have loved it as like an 8th grade parent whose grasp of algebra was many years in the rear view, being able to sit down with some of these tools and articulate with them so that I could help my kid or help my kid help themselves. And the tools and their capabilities have reached that point. The other thing you mentioned that I think is significant is process. And you said it when it comes to writing or really any learning endeavor. The learning is what happens along the way. The artifact at the end is nice, and it's sort of an indicator of what kids can do, but the real value and the real learning is what happens along the way. And I think that's a challenge for educators who are very acclimated to that end product being the representation of learning. And particularly with the capabilities of AI, you have to be very assured that that is authentic in terms of what's submitted. Whereas engaging kids in the process along the way, I think reveals the opportunities and also I think reduces the inclination to, if you've done all these steps along the way, chances are you're not going to go out and hit an easy button to give you something completely different at the end. So I'm sorry, that's a lot, but it's, I think work that's important to the district, certainly work that I'm keenly interested in. And last one, just out of curiosity, the website, did you use Gemini Canvas to vibe code that? So that's kind of interesting too, because you can articulate to Gemini to create a web page, and that in and of itself, like a website like that, could be a future product that students create. Like you might think of traditional research or something that kids might produce a report. Now with the ability to articulate with specificity and resources, you can instruct AI to create a website that's functional and usable to an audience. So I would certainly encourage, as you're learning about, and as teachers are learning about what some of these tools are and what they can do, to even rethink the kinds of products. I think you had on the list there, some of it being multimodal. So that would be a great example of my ability to articulate my understanding of something. Could be a website where I talk about process or the inspiration or the product or the things that happen along the way. So yeah, that I was just curious about. I didn't realize it was, I had a hunch, but I wasn't sure.
If you knew my coding experience, it's more than a hunch.
Well, you're articulate. You can articulate exactly what you want, and that becomes a key skill as well. Sorry, I did not mean to do that, to monopolize. But other questions or thoughts?
I had a question, and forgive me if I missed it, but so after this is kind of worked through, after the pilot program runs, the teachers are gonna report out on how they used AI in their lesson development or anything like that, so you're gonna evaluate how they used it?
Well, we'll know how they're using it going into it. They'll propose what they're going to be doing, and the committee will discuss it too. But we're also going to be surveying students both before and after that unit, so we can get their feedback on how it went and the engagement and those kinds of things. So we'll be using teacher and student feedback and using that then to bring it back to the departments about other areas that we could revise as well.
Okay, and how does the parent aspect work into that as well?
We didn't talk much about parent feedback. I don't know, they're not in the classroom, so it's hard for them to really give much feedback on it, but maybe there's another opportunity to get more parent feedback about that as well. And especially during, like back to school night and things like that. I know as soon as I get back, I want to jot down some notes about some para programs that we can do at back to school night next year. And what I think we'll talk about with the teachers, involving their parents, the parents of the students in the pilot program to get their feedback throughout as well. Any other questions? Yes.
I suppose this might be kind of the whole point, but I'm struck by one of your questions, survey questions, put it in the context of my peers cheat, use it to cheat. Is it, maybe, is it generally viewed by students as a way to, it's got that negative aspect. If you're using this, you're cheating.
So we asked two different questions. We asked, do you use generative AI for negative reasons? And we put in parentheses, cheating. Or do you use, and a separate question, do you use generative AI for, I forget what the other word was, but for, positive reasons, and we gave examples for that as well. So, so we were able to get both sides of it.
Recognize that teachers view it as potentially a positive thing, not necessarily all negative. It's not only about cheating.
Yeah, it depends on how. Well, one of the things that we're trying to put together, some states have some really good models, is it's like an AI use continuum. And with each assignment, you can explain to the students, this is red, this is a 0, like no AI use. This assignment is a yellow, where you can use AI to generate ideas, but the product should be based on what you create. Or this assignment might be green with AI, where use as much of it as you want. So we're trying to, one of the things that we're going to go over with the committee the next time that they meet is having something like that throughout this unit, so that students understand the different parts of how much AI, or if at all they should be using AI with each different part of the assignment.
Teacher modeling with that, I think, becomes crucial, because the teacher can say, hey, look, I'll show you to do this, but if you were to continue and do this, that might be problematic.
And I think if you would have asked us 2 years ago about AI, we would have only thought of it in negative connotations, right? Like, how are we going to protect our students from this tool? And now, we can't, we need to teach them how to use it properly. And so I think that's the direction we're moving towards now. So there are negative aspects to it, but there's many more positive aspects to it. And so we're still trying to curb the negative uses, but promote the positive uses. And that is not a, easy thing to do. That's the line that we're sort of following. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Rich.
All right. Rich, I didn't know, was there anything specific on home instruction or out-of-district placements to draw attention to? I guess we'll vote on those next week, but just standard.
Yeah,
Standard
and I
updates.
think the idea
Okay.
was, again, those things come in,
Yep.
daily, so waiting until you can actually vote on those, that's
Yep.
when those things will be put in there. So again, even though next week is a voting session, that doesn't mean if there's questions on something that gets added as an attachment, we can't discuss it.
Okay.
Maybe we could just, for our new members, describe what those things are.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I can do that real quick right now. Home instruction, so there will be a list of home instruction students. Student numbers will be listed that are on home instruction, so the board is required to approve those. Those are students who are typically out for medical reasons, that we're providing instruction while they're out for those medical reasons. There are a few other varying reasons that we could be providing home instruction, but the majority of those are usually for medical reasons. Out-of-district placements is also, again, this is a running list, students that are either going out of district or coming back into district. A lot of times you'll see students on there that are being accepted into our programs. So there's both, it goes both ways. And that's usually, if there are any new placements that month, this is where the board would approve it. And out-of-district placements are typically, again, for special education reasons. We have a lot of programs. At some point, maybe we'll have Jen talk about all the different programs, and Bobby, so that you understand what we have in district, and you'll have a good understanding of how we try to keep our students in district whenever possible. But there are some times where we don't have the ability to educate them based on their disabilities, and so they have to go to a school that specializes in them.
Okay. I'm going to move forward to policy and school security. Interestingly, one of the things I was going to share, and actually it came up in public comment tonight, is that we did at the end of December receive from school boards their draft on the Freedom to Read Act. So that policy will be shared with you after this meeting. Our hope is to have a first reading of it next week. I believe that you'll see a version where it's sort of redlined, where what's different, and sort of another version where it's the final version that would go in. I'll just say it's unfortunate that our policy vendor got that to us at the end of December, so we're only in a position now to be able to process that. We would have our first reading next week, the opportunity to discuss, and then we would be voting on it the week after in terms of putting it into place. I think the legislation was that we were to, have had it in place by the end of December. On that note, I am going to ask Brian to chair sort of our policy ad hoc committee. That was one of the pieces of feedback I received, is folks recognize that there are these certain committees, such as negotiations and policy, that just need to shepherd certain work forward. Brian was on the policy committee, and what I'm asking really for anyone who's interested in that work, and if you are interested, let me know, and we'll see if there's a small cohort of folks. It wouldn't be so much as evaluating the way you would in committee, but really just sort of setting up an agenda to keep us on track and moving policy to us so that we can move it through a first read and a second read process. Since we made the switch to school boards, I know we have those documented policies. Brian has a lot of housekeeping notes on there. So I'm asking him to continue with that work, and he agreed. If you're interested in being part of that process, shoot me an email and we can coordinate from there. But like I said, you wouldn't be expected to be having deliberative decisions about the policies, but rather, identifying these are the ones we're going to bring forward, perhaps identifying places where the district may have to make a decision or address a note that might be there, but then that becomes the fodder of our discussion in the first read process.
Yeah, I would love to join in, and just so you know, I have been on policy in the chair, and I was a part of the process of writing 2530 and 9130, so we worked really hard on that years ago. And
Since it came up in public comment, just so you're describing the approach that we're taking right now, we haven't taken a vote or anything. but
Correct.
The process you're describing is take school board's suggested revision to those policies that would comply with the law.
Right. the draft that we received from school boards at the end of December was their attempt to make that policy now compliant with the law. And so it would be us looking at, okay, this is what they are saying, our new policy around this essentially needs to be as per the law.
And that's one of the things on the county meetings that we have. We always have legislation. If there's any changes, school boards will bring that up in our county meetings. So it's great because you can ask questions right then and there too. And if it's something that needs to be acted upon where there's revisions to policy, you know, we kind of are ahead of the game on that, so.
When did you say by law it needs to be in place?
I think it was supposed to have been in place in December, but I believe school boards did not get the policy to us until the end of December and not in a timely manner that we could act upon it.
So basically, we overrode our own policies by accepting school boards. All right.
That might have been, sorry. We had, over a series of years, revised Strauss-Esme, policies to some extent. Maybe some of them were verbatim Strauss-Esme, other ones were 90% them, 10% us. I don't remember if this is one.
This was us.
I think it was more us than
They
us.
took,
Yeah.
so they took that kind of modified Strauss-Esme, school boards did. We paid them to take a look at our policy manual and kind of translate it to theirs.
Oh,
So
okay.
for example, when they fed us back, we have the weighted voting. Well, that's not a normal school board, NJSBA.
So we didn't accept boilerplate school
It
boards,
was-
they did a review for us.
Many of them were
Okay.
boilerplate, some of them were modified,
Uh-huh.
so that the Strauss-Esme and their version didn't clash, one way to say it. And so I don't remember if this is one that
Well, it wasn't,
had some flavor of our own
Yeah.
flavor in it at all.
school
They
boards
revised
didn't
it.
have their policy version of it yet. And then, so what we would have is sort of our old Strauss-May with whatever notes were sort of there to be addressed going forward.
I can say at the time that, we were converting from Strauss-Esme to school boards, there was, at the time, the board said, we want to accept what school boards is recommending. And so there were, the changes that, ours was a custom policy and school board said, well, this is what we recommend to people, and I think we went with what they recommended. That was before the Freedom of Read Act was signed into law. Now that it was, they have now, the Department of Education developed guidance, the policy services, Strauss-Esme or school boards, took that guidance and developed their model policies to adhere to that. And so our policy that we will be adopting is going to be very similar to what we created in this district as a custom policy. And because of that really was instrumental in the state law.
Right, and theoretically, school boards did this policy out to all school districts, so many
Yes.
school districts are probably in the same kind of
Without a doubt,
compliance
yes.
region that we are, right, because of the timing.
Yes, I mean, when it comes to policies,
Right, because you
the
have a time
majority
frame
of
to-
schools have Strauss-Esme at this point, and there's a few that have school boards.
Right, but to adopt a new policy, we have a procedure for first reading,
We do.
second reading. It takes time for us to approve a new policy. We can't turn around a new policy in
Yeah.
3 days. Right,
Yeah.
it's just a standard school board operating
So
procedure.
we'll be a little late, but we're gonna get it done.
And do we still have the opportunity to customize it even more if we wanted to?
Well, that would be the discussion
That's
as
the
we look at it into next week. I don't know if we have sort of the legacy policy.
So yeah, we still have access to our old policy
Yeah.
manual online that I can get all the different versions. That policy, particularly 2530, I think went through like multiple revisions. There was one revision, there was like 3 revisions in a 12-month period because of the controversy that was surrounding it, and we wanted to make sure we were addressing all the
Yeah, I remember.
pieces. So that was, I can get all those versions, or we can just look at what the last version was that we had before we decided to move over to school boards.
In that legacy version, we might find it syncs very nicely with what the law now requires.
And I think in that policy committee, that ad hoc committee, that's some of the discussions we're gonna have, is, looking at, where we were, where we're at, and where we wanna be.
So the policy committee, the ad hoc committee is gonna be, you said you're creating a structure to kind of push these policies forward, but will they also be
informing us or kind of?
I think really what happens is they, as a first look, have the opportunity to draw our attention to like details as per Brian's notes, or in the cases where there's a policy where it's asking the district to make a decision on something to decide. It's really bringing those to our attention so that in that first reading, it opens up the floor to those discussions. Do we want to go this way or that way? Do we like it phrased this? Or, hey, maybe there's something from this legacy policy that we like that maybe isn't in the new policy and we want to add that to it. And then the second read gives us the opportunity.
Right.
To do
And we're
that.
still working through some of this stuff with school boards as well. Like Strauss had a way of giving us a good product that we could just put up for everybody to review. Last month, or yeah, I guess it was last month, if you remember, we did accept some policy changes, and there wasn't a red line version. It was just the language that we wanted the board to accept. They were very minor changes, so it didn't make much of a difference. But in this case, these are substantial changes. So there will be a red line version, so you'll see what's added, what's deleted, what's modified in that first reading. Then discussion will happen with the board. Once that gets finished, then it will become a final product to vote on in the second reading without the red line, because that will be the language that you want in there.
Right.
And to, the position of the voting delegate is, that's what you work on with school boards. So these policies will come up before, and then a school board, every voting delegate reviews, and then they're voted, and that's when those changes come out of school boards twice a year on policy. So it's an interesting position to hold.
Okay.
Just in general, how much more do we have to go through updating the policy?
Well, we adopted the school board policies sort of en masse. And the intention was we would now go back through them and sort of section by section.
Right.
Go through
And
them.
just out of curiosity, are we, like, how far through that are we?
Or I think we're like one policy through it in terms of like the bylaws that we addressed in the prior meeting or the one
So
before.
this will be.
It's all ahead of us.
actionable item.
This is really gonna be-
Yeah.
It's going to be, it's going to be going on for a little bit. Phil?
Just real quick, a number of the districts that we represent have changed either from Strauss Esme to New Jersey School Boards or New Jersey School Boards to Strauss Esme. Every policy in Strauss Esme can be found in New Jersey School Boards. So there's nothing that is left out that the board has to worry about in that regard. Secondly, all the policies that the board is discussing, or most all of the policies, are based upon statutes that the legislature passes that specifically say in those statutes that boards of education will promulgate policies consistent with what these statutes have to say. Strauss Esme and New Jersey School Boards are a service to help the board develop those policies that the legislature requires. So while I don't see how school boards could possibly we could develop all of our own policies based upon the hundreds of requirements from the legislature, there is nothing stopping a school board from developing its own policy. And I'm sure at the delegate assembly, many of the policies that come up may have nothing to do with what the legislature is necessarily thinking of, but that boards are organically thinking of on their own.
Exactly, yep.
I have a question, sorry. Two, actually. So with the Freedom to Read Act policy, is there any kind of grace period because the policy was given to us so late that we have to comply?
I don't know that it's so much, we have a policy that is in place and is still acting at present.
But
It's just a matter of us having something that is now in compliance with the law. I don't know that that turns into anything, Phil, or Katie with CUSAC. I don't know.
The board doesn't have to worry about anything because at its organizational meeting, it re-ratified all of its policies. And you already have policy in the books that address this, and now you're about to amend that policy. So no worry to think that the board isn't in danger of any kind of sanction for not timely updating that policy.
But it's still not in compliance with the Freedom to Read.
Correct. All
Yeah,
of the
current policy.
specific details, that's what the new draft will entail.
But we also, just to be clear, our local policies, if there's a state law that governs something and is more restrictive than what our current policy is, we
It
have to follow
differs.
state law.
Right.
Yeah, so we would have to be in compliance with the Freedom to Read Act, whether or not we have the policy for it or not. We're just getting our policy up to date.
Interesting.
So that we can comply with it when it happens.
And then my second question is, the ad hoc committee would basically prioritize what policies need to be amended and adjusted
Well,
and then bring it to us?
I mean,
or
that's
is there-
definitely a possibility, and I would see that in consultation with Rich to sort of say like, here, this is the order in which we might want to do it, or to say, there's an emergent need to prioritize some before getting to others.
And it really comes down to updates. Our policy manual is what it is. If the board felt like there was something that needed to be improved, we would look at that, talk about language in the policy committee, and then bring it to the full board for consideration. But most of what we change in our policies is based on the recommendations of our policy service. So that at school boards of Strauss-Esme, for good or bad, had a lot of updates. Every month, we would have something that they would be recommending. School boards, their philosophy is a little different. They don't recommend as much. So it might be a little less frequent, but when they do have them, it might be 3 or 4 policies we're talking about at the same time.
Okay. And do we have like set timelines where we'll go through and review policies like after 3 or 4 years to see if they're still up to date with current things, if nothing comes around? Do we have like a?
We don't have that currently. We have done that in the past, where we would review all the thousands, right?
Right.
We go through the thousands and, we have this thing in our district that again, I don't think it counts now because everything says adopted last June 24th, 2025. But prior to that, when we had Strauss-Esme for so long that if there was any policy that said it was adopted in 2001, that means it could have been 2001 or 1962. Because that was when we digitized them, right? So everything was re-adopted then. And then, so we really had no context, and there were policies that we would go through and clean up because they were no longer relevant.
Right.
About things that.
Pagers.
Yeah, and well, unfortunately, pagers is still in there, and that's a mandate policy. As crazy as that is, but there was other things that just, there were school rules that were in
Right.
policy that weren't in effect anymore.
Okay. Yeah. go.
Real quick, also, the board and the community will be assured that the superintendent possesses the authority from this board to promulgate what are called regulations. And regulations do not follow the same process, unless required by law, that board policies do. The regulations are kind of the how-to of the policies. And the superintendent may promulgate regulations with or without board votes whenever he sees that it's appropriate. So if you look through our policies, you'll notice that there are a lot of policies that also have regulations attached to those. Those are your administrations telling the district, this is how we do this. This is the how-to.
This superintendent won't do that without notifying himself.
No, not without notification.
But we would definitely, make sure everybody knows what those procedures are to make sure that policy is being implemented correctly.
Okay, I'd like to shift to the finance and facilities, or what may evolve into the school business administrator's report. Like last week, I did ask Katie to sort of, with so many new folks, just briefly sort of explain what each of these items are. Obviously, you have access to the documents themselves, but it's just a way of getting acclimated and certainly an opportunity to ask questions. So, Kate.
Great. I do have a presentation to do first, and she's probably going to get set up. So I'm planning for the committee the whole structure. Rich and I have been discussing the best way for us to get out budget information to the full board in the best fashion. And although I typically would have shared some nice Excel worksheets, and I love Excel worksheets with finance committee, I decided to go presentation style because of the makeup of the board now, to provide some history and some background on our district. So every year, our budget season presents its own unique challenges, and this isn't any exception. I hope this presentation helps the board have a greater awareness as where we've been, where we are, and where we're planning to go. So we're going to focus on the expenditures and the cost containment side of the budget and focus on revenues at the next meeting. So there's going to be a lot of meat and potatoes at this meeting to hopefully offset maybe some of the conversations that typically would hit the March and April meetings when we do preliminary budget approval. So it always begins with assessing our long-term and short-term goals of the district. So these bulleted items are always what we focus on and strategize around when we're preparing a budget, which is always focusing on the strategic plans and objectives, providing thorough and efficient education, keeping all of the current level of academic courses and co-curriculars, and athletics, safe, functional, and clean facilities, and that is a big task with 2 large high schools, contractual obligations, retaining and attracting the high-quality staff members, meeting the mandates, and also preparing a budget that's fiscally responsible. So the chart displays our district budget as segments of a pie, the largest segment of the budget being salaries and benefits of 67% of the budget. The next largest areas and items we'll be discussing tonight in depth are also transportation, out-of-district tuition, facilities, and also a piece of liability insurance. So to start with salaries, they're also the largest part of our budget. The blue bar represents the amount the district has spent on total salaries from 22-23 all the way through the projected next school budget year of 26-27. The purple line represents the collective bargaining unit increase for each year. And comparatively, the red line is the actual percentage of increase in our total salaries. So the difference between the red and the purple line is how we consistently reduce salary increases annually by some cost-containing strategies such as breakage, hiring replacement employees at a lesser salary than the employee leaving, evaluating retirements to determine if a replacement of the position is necessary or if the work can be dispersed, and retaining high-caliber employees by increasing the student population with polytech programs during a time of declining enrollment in the constituent districts. So the 25-26 school year is still in progress, and so is obviously next year's projection. So you can see that line kind of flattens out as we get firmer numbers when we complete the school year. But this is a huge budget challenge, knowing that our revenues are bound by a 2% tax levy cap and also flat to declining state aid. So the next largest budget driver is health benefits, and it's important to understand some of the legislation that impacts our district, specifically related to employee contributions towards health benefits. So Chapter 78 legislation was implemented in 2011, and that requires school district personnel to contribute towards the cost of their health insurance premiums. The contribution schedule that the state developed is based on the employee's salary, which establishes a percentage, and then that percentage is then applied to the premium cost to arrive at what is withheld from their paycheck. So Chapter 44 was then implemented in 2019, and it was enacted to provide alternate health benefit plans that are in addition to the already existing plans in our collective bargaining agreement with the union. The theory was to provide school employees additional plan options that could save both the employee and the district money by reducing the plan designs and the offerings. So however, at the inception of the implementation, it was very clear that most districts are now paying more for their employees that are enrolled in the Chapter 44 plans. And this is due to significantly less employee contributions for these 2 plans that were enacted, the EHP and the GSHP. And just another item to note, Chapter 44 also requires the mandatory enrollment of all of our new employees, and it does sunset in 2028. However, we're still waiting to hear if it's going to be renewed. So the next chart depicts how these health benefit costs are incurred per employee. The blue line represents the total premium cost for the employee. The green line is the employee contribution out of their paycheck towards that premium. So as you can see, this has remained nearly flat, only a very slight increase, and the red line is the district cost of the premium. It's also evident that the rise in the premium cost of the health benefits is impacting the district significantly, and the employee contributions are nearly remaining static. So the district is bearing the primary burden of these significant health premium increases, and it's bound by state legislation.
So that's the important part, is this is bound by state legislation, and collective bargaining. But, so these are fixed costs that we don't have much control over, is what it comes down to.
So how does the NHV annual health benefit increases compare to the next largest insurer in the state, which is the state health benefit plan? So the blue line is the NHV annual increases, and as a member of the school health insurance fund, and the red line is the SHBP annual increases. So although we've experienced very reasonable and predictable increases over the past few years, the health insurance market is very volatile going into 2026. And as everyone has seen, the overall health insurance marketplace is experiencing significant increases, and we are no exception. The state health benefit plan is expecting a 33% increase for 2026 and an anticipated 29% increase in 2027. So although our plan increase of 20% that is projected for our next fiscal year budget is less damaging than the state health benefit plan, it is also massive and a significant impact on our annual budget. And again, we are limited to a 2% tax levy increase and a flat to decline in the state aid, unless of course there are certain exceptions where you can go above 2%, like a health benefit adjustment, which we do anticipate due to these high level increases. So on the topic of insurance, I'll just have one quick highlight slide for mitigating our costs in our liability insurance. We are a member of NJSIG, New Jersey Schools Insurance Group. So just as we're in the school's health insurance fund, the NJSIG is also a not-for-profit entity, and without the motivation of generating profit. So surpluses are returned to our district or any district that's a member if they're generated. So our broker will shop our plan aggressively at our renewal to determine the lowest cost option and provide, while of course providing the same coverage. So we're looking forward to a year where this increase is not as significant in liability insurance due to the favorable reinsurance market currently. Transportation costs. So these costs
Katie,
happen.
if I can.
Sure.
I believe, wasn't there a fairly recent finance committee meeting where you had the broker
I did.
attend, who sort of projected out sort of where, and I guess this is all the results of that, those
Correct.
projections and the plans we're in versus what's happening to some of the
In
other
the
ones.
market in general.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Two slides ago, right, that broker was talking about health benefits, not.
He was talking about health benefits, not liability, correct?
I wanted to ask a question about that too, because he told us we might expect up to a 30% increase. Is it now?
Correct.
Now he thinks more like 20?
We are looking at closer to 20% because we're in that school's health, the school's health insurance fund versus the state health benefit plan.
Okay.
At the time, we knew the state health benefit plan increase, but we weren't sure about our increase in our district.
And, sorry, theoretically, if we have a relatively healthy group of people who are arranged in the plan, we get more favorable rates than, right? That's another thing, so that's like a component that's unique to us, right? If we
Yes.
bring healthy, less expensive
That's
people.
what allowed us to enter into the school's health insurance
Okay,
fund,
first
because
place.
you have to be a healthy district to enter in,
So
which is claims experience. Right?
the school health insurance fund is basically a self-insured program. But so as a district, if you have a budget like we do, you can do what's called self-insuring, where you hire someone to manage your insurance, on claims and things of that nature, an Aetna or a Blue Cross or Blue Shield, but you pay the claims out of your money, out of your pocket, right? But there's exposure with that, and the exposure is if you start getting really high claims, you don't have the money, you have to find the money. What the health insurance fund is a bunch of people doing that together, so a consortium.
So you have.
And so we have the power of the numbers, but we're still able to manage that without going to a private insurer. And so if we have a healthier population, like we were allowed in because of our population, because of our, what do I call it, utilization rates, I learned a lot about insurance, being in this job, that more than I ever thought I would. But insurance companies charge you based on how much you use them. If you have a high utilization rate, your rates go up higher. It's not, they don't lose money. And so we're fortunate that we're in this fund. We were able to get into it when we had a very healthy population. Once you're in, then they have, I love Jim Fibb's term, he calls it a collar and a cuff, which is, if the average is gonna be 20% and your organization is doing really well as far as claims, you might be 18 or 18.5, but it can't go below that. And then, again, conversely, if you have a high claim ratio, you can go up to maybe 21, 22, but they can't raise you up to like 30%, and while everyone else is at 20. So they have these like
Buffers.
small little
Yeah.
increases, buffers there.
So you're sharing it, it's all.
Exactly,
Yeah.
which protects us from unexpected, even more unexpected expenses, but it also protects the fund so that they can actually, divvy that out to protect all the members.
Do we have to apply every year? Every year are we reevaluated, or is it every
No, I
couple
think
of
it's
years?
every year.
Okay.
And what year was it? Because this came up when I was on
I
finance
first
facilities.
started
and-
in 19, so it was by the spring of 2020, we
yeah.
decided to start
did.
shifting it.
Yeah, because Horizon, remember the premium on that time?
It was just
Yeah.
a roller coaster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so thank goodness that you were proactive and got us in this.
And we've gone back and forth over the years with, between state health benefits, privately using Horizon or Aetna, and then the SHIP, and I think so far the SHIP has proved to be the best. we've
Yeah,
had in a
good,
while.
thank you.
So just further clarification, because of that meeting we did have, so while 20% is much bigger than 2%, it's less much bigger than 30%.
Yes.
Okay.
All set.
Is it kind of getting solidified now, or are we still haven't, we really don't know exactly?
That's our broker estimate for right now. So
Okay.
has the SHIP actually issued their renewals for the year? No. But that's what's coming out of the SHIP as far as what to plan for.
And when is that, when does it get locked?
It'll most likely be after we adopt preliminary budget. Usually it's
Okay.
April. So we just have to go with our preliminary estimates
Room
and
for
hope for the
surprises.
best. Yeah, exactly. We have to plan for the worst, but
Yeah,
hope for the best.
okay.
Thank you.
So transportation. They have been rising significantly the past few years. You can see that on this bar chart. Why? It's been caused by the bus driver shortages, and that really drove up the cost of the hourly rate for bus drivers. It's also an increase in the cost of gasoline and the significant cost in the increase in buses. So what are we doing to contain the cost? We do our best to renew our routes at CPI when it's possible, because that is significantly cheaper than rebidding a route every year. We coordinate our transportation with Hunterdon County Educational Services Commission, so we stack our routes with neighboring districts. This provides significantly reduced route costs, since bus companies can then complete more routes efficiently among the participating districts with them. We're consistently reviewing regular and special education routes to determine if there are further efficiencies to be gained in route planning and remapping. And as we'll discuss shortly, we're also mitigating out-of-district placements, so our district will save significant funds related to tuition with those, but also with the associated transportation costs with those out-of-district placements. So these routes are significant in cost and also typically only transport one student. So looking forward to future cost containment, the utilization of bus waivers would be a cost savings and reducing the number of students that need to be transported, and we do have a policy that supports this if we do move to that. This would have been a great idea to implement in conjunction with the waiver of senior parking fees to gain participation. However, alternate options will now need to be explored.
Can I just
Of course.
add something to that? Just because we have a lot of new members, and I just want to point out, in the past, because of, this has been a constant issue, Katie's done, we've had like independent studies outside of the district to look at our routing and everything, to see if there's any efficiencies that could be, and we basically have the most
As
efficient.
efficient as you could be.
As efficient as we can be, yeah. So it has been looked at year after year, kind
We
of.
keep looking for low-hanging fruit and finding it.
Yeah,
Right,
right.
it's it's all taken. Given the size and the, the difference between, it's hard. I'm sure sending
Yeah.
districts know it too, it's.
We're one of the largest geographic in
Geographic,
miles from.
In order to
state.
cut a bus, it would make the other routes so significantly longer in
Mhm.
time that it's
Yeah.
just not feasible. So again, unless you were to have students that waive their seat on that bus, so that we then can consolidate the routes, it's really the only feasible option.
But the waiver is really, the only way a waiver is really effective is there's some kind of incentive for it, right? And so that's what our issue has been over the years, is, because somebody can say, well, I'll waive my seat on a bus, but then 3 weeks later, they could rescind that waiver, and then you have to have a seat on a bus for that kid. So you have to be careful what you do with that. And that was one of the things with senior parking that we thought about was, if you get free parking if you waive your seat on a bus. Then we can cut bus routes, right? And so that's something we're gonna further explore and bring to the board consideration.
I ask, I endorse that. It's a new board.
Yeah.
I think what we should try to get, what in my opinion we should have done in the first place is ask for some optionality before we just went down that road immediately. So if you're willing to give us, the new board, some optionality to think about,
We will,
so please
without a doubt.
consider, I would say we should consider that student parking can be on the table again
Yeah,
if
we're,
the board decides to
we're
change
just
that.
not gonna tackle it in January, but it's coming.
Yeah.
With options attached.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
it wasn't gonna be, right now, as the board decision stands right now, that it was not gonna be implemented until 26, 27, right?
Right.
That's correct.
So you're saying theoretically, if everyone who got a parking spot waived their seat on a bus, we would see significant transport, or some,
We could save a route for everyone.
Well, let's say, you know, again, our total income from student parking, I think we talked around $38,000.
Right.
You know, if we were able to save one route, that would save $35,000.
Oh, more than
Or 50,000, it was about,
Oh,
about
yeah.
50,000 now. So even if we could save one bus just by half of the seniors not taking, you know.
right, I was just trying to really understand like how big an impact that would have.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it comes down
was-
to that incentive, right?
Mhm.
And so that incentive is, well, if I save $75 for the year and I give up my thing, well, if you know, part of that waiver would have to be that, well, if in the middle of the year you come back and say, oh, well, I don't have a car anymore, I need a bus, or I want my bus seat back just in case my car breaks down, then you gotta pay the $75.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, do we
You know,
have,
it's
have
like
we
a-
asked students in the past to waive the, you know, whether they want to waive or?
We
no,
have
we've never
not.
tried
Waivers
this?
has been something we've talked a lot about, but it's again, there's a lot of complicated nuances about it. But I think we're gonna try
The
to.
legislation is still fairly new. I don't think this is something that's.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And the senior one would be an easy one, you know, underclassmen would be a little harder unless we wanted to, yeah, not that it can't be done, but it's just a little harder to implement, so.
All right, so the next couple slides, I had the privilege of working with Jeff Pomerowski, and what are out-of-district costs? I think that's important just to talk about. What does that mean? If a student has a need for a specialized learning program that can't be met in district, they may require the enrollment in a special school that specializes in the need of that student. So these schools require us, NHV, to pay tuition for that student to attend, which is a cost that will far exceed the cost of educating the student in district. So it also requires our district to provide individual transportation to that school. So again, with the help of Jen, the data on the chart displays the reduction that we've seen annually in the number of out-of-district placements, which is the light blue bar. The dark blue column is the tuition revenue generated by students that we are receiving from other districts into our district special programs. So these are programs that we created at NHV, and they are highly sought after, and other districts are now showing increased interest in sending their students here, which provides our district funds to offset the cost in running these programs. So what are the reasons for the success in the special programs at NHV? So again, I would say it's the amazing special services staff that we have here and the administration, but Jen gave me these three other points as well. Program expansion that's happening at the special student needs that will evolve and change. There are now several programs that meet the specialized needs of district students and have been adapted over time, as you can see here and that are listed. Collaboration among sending districts is a key to success in transitioning 8th graders into North Voorhees. The articulation happens frequently, so our student services department begins to determine upcoming needs of 7th and 8th graders. And on a somewhat regular basis, we receive 8th graders into our programs on a tuition basis from one of our constituent districts. This also helps to acclimate those students prior to high school. And also a commitment to inclusion. NHV has a consistent focus on educating students with the least restrictive environment. So as you can see here, this is just another chart that she was providing to us that is really great comparative look at NHV placements with students with IEPs. So the first bar you're going to see is nationwide, the second one is statewide, third is a local pool of districts, and then the fourth is NHV. The dark green bar represents students with an IEP in general ed classrooms over 80% of the day. The light green is 40 to 79% of the day. Those IEP students are in general ed classrooms. Red indicates IEP students in general ed classrooms less than 40% of the day. And orange represents a separate setting, and blue is for parentally placed in a private school. So you can see here that the special programs created in NHV have a primary focus in the least restrictive environment, keeping more students in general ed settings with peers far exceeding all of the peer groups shown. So thank you again, Jen. So I'm going to transition over into capital projects, which is usually one of the largest expenditure items that we have in the district. So there's going to be three different ways that we've been able to use kind of district, non-district funds or other people's money, let's say, that are not taxpayer funds over the last 5 years. So first we had the referendum of 2022. So just to give everybody a highlight and a debrief on kind of what it was and what we included in there. It did not incur any long-term debt, but allowed NHV to receive over 30% of our project costs with state aid funding. $6.5 million of projects listed in the slide were completed, and with the approval of our constituent districts, which we thank you, we were able to submit these projects to the state and receive $2.2 million to execute the projects. They were completed under budget, and remaining funds have now been returned to our capital reserve account for later use on other projects. Referendum campaigns really require a significant board involvement and the time spent communicating the benefits of those positive referendum votes. The communication of our board was successful in 2022 and was well worth their time and investment due to the $2.2 million of the state aid funds that were acquired.
So before you leave, this is
Yeah,
where I get to
feel
talk
free.
about Katie a little bit. So, again, this, just to explain what this was, this was, Katie came up with this idea, which was, if we go out for referendum for these projects, the state will give us 38% of the money back. If we didn't go out for referendum, if we just said, we're gonna take this money from our capital reserve and we're gonna pay for the projects, it would cost us $6.5 million. What Katie said we do is float a one-year bond, so we would incur minimal interest, but hardly any. By doing that, by the voters affirmatively, voting for the referendum, we were able to get the 38% from the state and then take from capital reserve and pay off that bond in 1 year. So it really only cost us $4.2 million for the $6.5 million worth of work. But again, there's a lot of work behind the scenes that has to be done to make that happen. This is the hard way to do it, but the better way to do it financially for the district. And that's how we've been able to, this is one example of how we've been able to contain costs so that when the taxes can only go up 2% and everything else is going up 20 and 3.5%, the reason we can contain that is because we're doing other cost-saving initiatives like this, and her office is always looking for ways to do this. So I think there's more examples coming up, but she's going to fly through things, and I know she'll make a chance.
The second way that we've used kind of other people's money, in 2019, we had an energy savings improvement plan. An ESIP is another way of saying it, and is supported by state legislation that allows a public entity to implement an ESIP that can be self-funded over a 15 to 20-year period, and of course, in accordance with that legislation. This started with a full energy audit to assess our buildings for areas of energy efficiency. The audit inventoried all light fixtures, boilers, HVAC units, etc., and provided data on the age and efficiency of the units, and also potential cost savings provided by replacing those with new fixtures or equipment. So the audit is then verified by an independent engineering firm and the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities, or NJBPU. This data allowed us to take the next steps of acquiring financing for a two-phase ESIP project. The first phase addressing inefficient lighting that would be upgraded to LED light fixtures. So LED lights were installed inside and outside of the schools. We installed destratification fans with UV lights in select areas with high ceilings, upgraded our building management system software, replacing old pneumatic controls with new automatic temperature controls, and also a ceiling upgrade in the high school CAF, the North Hunterdon High School CAF, as well as installing a new ventilation system in the cafeteria. So the second phase was roof-mounted solar, as you can see in the pictures. The district entered into a solar PPA, or a solar power purchase agreement. The district now purchases clean, renewable energy produced by the photovoltaic systems at a substantial discount through this long-term solar power purchase agreement with New Jersey Resources, who is the financer and long-term owner of this system. So in summary, the ESIP reduced our total energy consumption, electricity consumption, and provided solar energy for a portion of the remaining energy consumed. So the first chart you're going to see on the left, the electricity usage in 17-18, which was our base year for calculation, is also compared to the last fiscal year for 24-25. So we consume 450,000 less kWh per year, and the remaining consumption is approximately 40% of our building usage is generated by renewable solar power, indicated by the red-orange section of that bar. So the solar power is at a fixed rate with small escalations defined in our solar PPA, and it's at approximately 1 cent per kilowatt hour, whereas the market rate right now is approximately 19 cents per kilowatt hour. So this translates into our annual electricity bills in the next chart, chart number 2. And the baseline is the top bar, which was the NHV total utility cost for 17-18 baseline. At today's utility rate, if the ESIP was not done, electric costs would be approximately $930,000 annually per year, which is the second bar, versus our actual, which is $529,000, the third bar, and a difference of over $400,000 annually in electricity. So those are the dollars and cents behind.
So currently 40% of our energy is?
40% of our energy is solar
Solar,
renewable.
that's awesome.
So that is something that we've been looking at, is what do we do for the rest? And there is a lot of options right now
Mhm.
that are soon to be expiring, and something that we're looking into. So the third way for capital projects that we've used other funds is the utilization of grant funding. So I have this in a very brief synopsis, but in 2022, we became aware of the grant for school and small business ventilation and energy efficiency verification and repair grant. So the timeline shown on the right-hand side of the slide describes the process of when we became aware of the grant funding and how quickly we had to move in order to secure the grant application quickly. So Honeywell, which was our district ESCO, you may hear that term, it's our energy savings company that we work with, completed our full energy audit in 2019 and was able to take that information and translate that into a comprehensive grant application that then turned into a $6.5 million recommended energy improvements and submission. So the application was successful, and the figures shown are the real results of that grant. Over $6.5 million of repairs or replacements were completed in several areas of both North and Voorhees high schools, and recently finished just this past summer of 2025, with the cost to the taxpayer of $1.6 million. So the other portion, 4.9, was funded by the New Jersey Clean Energy Grant or the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities. So if you'd like more information on this grant, there's a whole lot more behind the scenes. I did a pretty comprehensive presentation in September of 2024, and I would just direct you to that presentation.
And again, just to reiterate, that was something that came quickly, right? It was one of those things like, you know, here's an opportunity, it's gonna expire 2 months from now. Do we have the board support? The board supported it. Katie ran with it and was able to get, you know, again, $5 million that we would have not been able to get. So, just, again, she puts a lot of work into making sure that we find these savings initiatives, and when we do, sometimes they're fast acting, and we need to explain it, but, you know.
So last but surely not least is our partnership with Hunterdon County Vocational, the new building that you're going to see right outside of our window. Our partnership has been in effect for almost 10 years. You can see on this timeline just kind of like how things have progressed, beginning with the first on-site full-time academy program for Hunterdon County Vocational. So prior to that academy, Hunterdon County only had part-time programs, and it required students to complete their core curriculum in their home district and be bussed to the vocational school for a few periods of CTE classes. This resulted in significant travel time and lost instruction time during the day. So the full-time academies, currently biomedical, animal science, computer science, and environmental sustainability, offered students a full day in one of our high schools. They complete their core curriculum classes at either North or Voorhees, and CTE periods are on-site as well. So this allows students to be a full-time vocational student while remaining in our building full-time. So 2019-2020, we worked closely to develop land leases and agreements to support Hunterdon County Vocational in applying for their Securing Their Children's Bond Act to construct their first vocational building devoted to the full-time CTE programs. So they were subsequently awarded that grant, and although there were many challenges along the way, it included significant building cost increases during their bidding process. They successfully completed their North Campus, just opening in this past August of 2025.
And again, I can speak quickly on that. You know, all these partnerships that we entered into with Polytech, we did with a student first, you know, lens, but also our enrollments were declining. And we saw this as opportunities to keep our kids here in our school and also bring students from other high schools in the county to our district and keep our enrollment flat because, you know, if our enrollments are declining, we have to reduce teaching staff. We have a great teaching staff. We don't want to reduce our teaching staff. So the only option was to figure out ways to increase enrollment or keep it flat at least, and that's what we've been able to do with our partnerships.
So that's exactly speaking to this slide. So over the past few years, the declining enrollment shows that the partnership has provided the stability for our student population. These students are full-time vocational students attending our school on a tuition basis, as I'll discuss in the next slide. So the first chart shows the Voorhees High School population, with the largest piece of the bar as our district enrollment for Voorhees, and then the smaller pieces are the academy students attending their programs. So you can see it kind of helps level out the top of the chart is our total student population in the school. The second chart displays the North Hunterdon population, which is the green piece in the north section, along with the orange bar, which is the biomedical academy students, and the blue section, which is the new North Campus building students. So these programs are only just the beginning, and we anticipate these programs to eventually have four cohorts of students, which is freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. So on both charts, the total enrollment per building is stabilized by the addition of these programs. So how does this partnership equate to funds in our operating budget? North Voorhees is responsible to pay Hunterdon County Vocational for every student that we send to their programs, both full or part-time. So that expenditure can be significant due to the increased interest of our students wanting to attend CTE programs. So the first bar is an example of how much North Voorhees District spent on vocational tuition, our expenditure, for our students to attend their vocational programs last year. The orange are the NHV students attending their full-time programs, and the blue is the cost of our students attending shared time programs. So in total, our annual expenditure to pay for our students to attend their programs is approximately $3.4 million per year. However, this expenditure is offset by our partnership with Hunterdon County Vocational. So they pay us a portion of their tuition revenue for every student attending their on-site academy programs, as well as the North Campus buildings. So the second bar represents the offsetting revenue that we receive from Hunterdon County Vocational for those student amounts. So displayed in the green bar is approximately $3.1 million annually. So as you can see, the expenditure that we would be paying for our students to attend Hunterdon County programs is significant. However, our partnership with them has provided a way for us to contain those costs and see the benefit of those programs.
The data you have here is from last year?
Correct.
So it doesn't reflect the north building yet?
Correct.
And that will lower the...
It should provide us more revenue back as a tuition credit, so you should see that green bar come up, and then hopefully maybe we can start to almost balance it, inequality. Yeah.
Okay.
So say you had a student that was going to be a Voorhees student, and they go to either the computer academy or the environmental science academy. Is that like a wash in terms of the money back and forth, or is
Not
it
a wash,
still?
because we sought to pay them their full tuition rate, which is like $10,500.
And they're only paying us back?
And they're paying us back a credit of X amount that we've decided upon, depending on what program that they're in. Could be 70%, could be 65%.
Okay, so it's not a wash, but they're still it's still a loss, sort of a loss to us, but.
Yes,
Sure.
yeah. But again, we're not paying the teacher for them either. So they have to pay for the teacher, they have to pay for the equipment for the program. So that's what that, anywhere from 24 to 30% difference is. That's their revenue source, and then we get the rest of that back.
I think one of the things that Dr. Burjack said first, though, is it's the student first. You know, we're even though this is money losing, let's say, not in quite offset, it does give our students that opportunity that they would not have had.
I was just, curious about the economics of it. If
Sure.
that, if
Yeah.
then do you encourage students to,
So, and that was, again, our original idea was we wanted to keep our students in district. We didn't want our students to leave our building because they wanted to pursue a four-year, biomedical academy somewhere else.
Get on a bus.
Yeah, and so, and I think by having the programs in our district, there are students, that might make a decision on whether or not they're gonna be in one of the academies based on, well, if I'm in the academy, I'm not gonna be able to play lacrosse at North Voorhees or something like that. If having it in district, they might say, oh yeah, I'm going to do that, take advantage of that, because they can stay in district. If they had to leave, they might not decide to do that. So I think that's the advantage that we've had, is it's good for our kids. Economically, the numbers don't lie, it's good for us economically as well, even though there might be a few situations where if we compare just this group of kids, we might be losing a little bit of money, but we're gaining money over here, and so it sort of offsets. So I think we're in good shape on both sides, really.
How many are non-students, how many students are we bringing in from other districts, all said and done across the four grades?
Approximately 55 to 60% are usually North Voorhees students already that are
Yeah,
attending.
I was gonna say, I think 40% of our
We're
district
the
kids are
majority.
from outside,
right, and then it's from Central or Del Val or South, right? It's really, it's within the county, it's not
It is,
from.
but we're starting to see some people from out of the county,
Okay.
because they're
Yeah.
offering things that now aren't being offered in others.
Yeah, that's, the county vocational system has its own set of rules, right? Like, if Hunterdon County, right now, we send students to Somerset County for a dance program, because we don't have one in Hunterdon County. They're developing one at South Hunterdon, and when they do that, those students that wanted to pursue the Performing Arts Academy, would have to go to the one that's in county because we offer it. And similarly to that, we offer some things like an Environmental and Sustainability Academy that Morris County might not offer, and if a student, you know, on that fringe of Hunterdon and Morris County wanted to come over here, they do.
And is this representative of all the programs? So the, like, full-time programs, both schools a full-time program and the shared time?
This is district-wide.
Okay.
And that's that blue and orange part area. You can see the smaller part is the share time.
Yeah.
And that's, again, that's only a junior senior program typically. So that's why, you know, you can see smaller numbers there also. And again, students are hesitant to do that because they're out of their home school for half a day. You know, it's important enough to some kids to do it, but that bus ride, you waste 20 minutes there and 20 minutes back every day too. So if we can keep the kids in our building, that's better.
So just to wrap up, hopefully you're asking, how can we do more of the things that you're seeing on the slides? How can we continue to make a significant positive change in supporting the students, keep as many dollars in the classrooms as we possibly can? So we as administration need to know that we have your support. Strategic initiatives and planning is required of us, your administrators, to continually produce these types of results. So it requires the board's support of these initiatives as they're being presented to the board for approval. Our initiatives are only impacting this district if they're supported and encouraged. And it takes several administrative hours, if not days in some instances, when we bring one contract or one resolution to the table. So when it's voted down, it's wasted time, it's wasted resources, and a wasted opportunity. So we're extremely proud of this district, and we've provided a balanced budget annually, generating surplus every year to fund capital projects, all without making significant program cuts or staffing cuts. This is largely due to the several cost containment measures shown tonight and the previous support of the Board of Ed. So next month, I really look forward to discussing the revenue side of the budget, along with the progress report of the capital projects that we have going on. And I look forward to working with this board this year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you for that work. And then just in the, sort of in the spirit of community relations, would it be possible at some point going forward to potentially have that presentation and subsequent presentations on the website?
Oh, of course.
And possibly if G could link the portion of this presentation so that somebody who wanted to see it could see the slideshow, they could hear your explanation of it at the same time. I know the dashboard, the finance dashboard was something that, out of the strategic plan, that the community was interested. They're supportive of what we do, it's just, it's complex and they want to understand it better. So I think anything we can do to make these resources and explanations available are a benefit.
Yeah, we can get both of these presentations linked from the agenda for tonight and then in future, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna actually
Yeah.
ask for this, because I wanted to take that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information. So
Yeah,
if you
there
wanna
is,
follow up with
and
any
I went
questions,
through it real quick, but wonderfully explained, so I appreciate it.
So Katie, not to test your speaking limits here, but if you could just give us, again, that sort of brief walkthrough as folks are new, and many of these types of items appear regularly, giving a little insight as to what they are, and certainly the opportunity to ask questions would be great.
Of course. So starting with the amended budget summary, the ACA grant is an annual grant that we receive directly from the state. We're amending the budget summary because we typically have rollover funds from the prior year that need to be included. So this is the amended funds to include rollover funds from last year. So this is kind of like this year's apportionment plus the prior rollover funds. So then it allows us to use last year's rollover funds along with this year and expend them before the end of this school year.
A little bit of housekeeping, basically.
Just housekeeping, yes. And they'll allow us to do this until this time of year. 10.2 is a resolution to award our bid for HVAC upgrades to Envirocon. You'll notice on the resolution, there was one lower bidder. They are not the responsible bidder. The lowest bidder came in extremely low, so we knew that there must have been a miscalculation on the bid of some sort, and they did rescind their bid the next day. So then Envirocon was the lowest responsible bidder. We did have a few other bids, all within the scope of how much we were projecting the cost to be for this project. So luckily, the Envirocon bid came in at the low end of our expected budget.
Yeah, and in my position on the FFT committee previously, and that this is in my realm of business, this is what my experience doing. So, and that's come up where you have someone come in who's very low, and you obviously don't want that person because they missed something in their bid, and you want to allow them to pull their bid because they just completely missed something and would not be able to do the job for that price. So it's good to have, multiple bids and all coming in around the same amount, so it's good.
Just one real quick question. The HVAC upgrades, does that
District office.
Okay, so does that coincide with the, forgive me if I have the wrong, the ESIP?
So the district office was not allowed to be used for, within the ESIP or the other grant funding, because it's not an educational space.
Okay,
So that's why this is being used out of capital reserve funds to fund this project separately and aside from those. We knew this would eventually have to get done. We've kind of been dragging our feet on getting this district office updated for that reason.
You mean we won't have thermostats on either side of the column? The building is split in
Although
half,
refreshing,
yeah.
yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Some history, this building was constructed by the construction program at Polytech in 1991, I believe. And so, over the years, we found a few things that, there were some learning curves, and it was exactly what it was supposed to be. But
I'll be sure to tell my brother that.
well, let's hope he wasn't on the HVAC portion. But,
Well, I'm wondering
yeah,
if
so-
any of our former attendees can tell us a little bit more about what was here.
So the board did previously last year approve our architect to do the plan design, and then we subsequently went out to bid, and this is the approval of the bid, so that they can start to do work, hopefully over spring break, if not over summer recess. The revised contracts with Hunterdon County Vocational, you have already seen these contracts, and they are subsequently being approved again, because they typically have revised enrollment numbers. They wait for their ASSA count at October 15th. And once that is finalized, they give us revised tuition contracts that finalize and solidify how much we owe them. So that's why you're seeing them a second time.
Is the enrollment, is a person, or is it an hour?
It is
Like
per
a
person.
class?
Per person, per program that is
Okay.
attending.
And so full-time, obviously, there's full-time.
So if a student's attending biomed, it's one student at X amount of tuition rate.
Right. And the shared time one, which you were describing a little bit, fewer attendees, but it's also cheaper. Is that simply because they're not in?
Because of the half day.
They're not working, they're not in the VOTEC ecosystem for as long as the day.
Correct.
Part-time or they're not, okay.
Right. The agreement with Ramp Health is for the execution of the staff wellness program. This is the first time we're using this vendor, but they have been recommended by the SHIP to us to conduct things that could be more beneficial to our staff population, which is including biometric screenings. So they requested that we have this contract approved in order for them to get off the ground and start their program with us. 10.5 is our budget calendar, and
Can
sorry.
I bring up something?
Sure.
It's a quick, one thing you just want to fill in probably is the unique email on page 14 on that contract. But the more important question, that's just a housekeeping, question is, let's say, so now we're going to, based on my experience working, that this actually had implications, like on how much you could, as an employee, you might end up paying for your health insurance. If you participated in it, does this have any implications?
It
Does
doesn't
the
have any,
biometric screening, as a specific example?
so it doesn't have any impact on the healthcare cost. What this is actually paid for through a wellness grant that the SHIF gives us every year. I forget how much money we get per year from a wellness grant, but they give us a chunk of money and they say, you can spend this on programs that are wellness programs for your staff. So for instance, I think next Tuesday, we have our in-service. We actually have massage therapists coming in that we pay through this wellness grant for 20-minute massages for staff in between sessions, right? Like chair massages and things like that. So we run other initiatives on top of that. Ramp Health is a new vendor that we want to also be part of this, and that's what we're hiring them to do, biometric screenings.
And we want so the outcome of this is we want the staff to be more informed about their health, perhaps an issue,
Preventative.
and they get a little coaching, not a stick or anything like that. It's just a little coaching. Hey, you might consider doing this to and then we get a better healthcare population.
Yeah, do we get a healthier
rates.
population and see, I think that's sort of like the
Yeah.
thinking behind it.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
if
it's
people
kind
are
of
healthier-
an investment in
Mhm.
future improvements in our health of our staff population.
Absolutely, and I think that's why the shift gives this wellness grant for programs. The idea is that if we take care of our staff's wellness needs, right, that they will have less medical needs, which means that our claims coverage is lower and the shift does better,
Right.
right? So that's the
Right,
whole.
like walking challenges or things like that,
Absolutely.
those are, I mean, I've seen those and those, are supposed to help reduce.
We have done those, I don't know if we have those on the docket this year, because I don't know if they were well utilized last year, but, the first time we put those out there, everybody did it, and it was great. And then, as with everything, sometimes people lose interest in certain things, and we try to come up with some creative ways to provide the same thing.
There's two other dimensions, and I know one comes up during negotiations, because you want to afford staff opportunities that keep them here versus having them look to go to another district. And things like this generally make for a more enjoyable workplace. And I'll share it with you. I was actually reading some research this morning that staff wellness, actually, there's some research starting to indicate some academic dividends. That, in other words, a happier staff
Yeah.
is a more successful learning environment. So it's
I agree
significant.
with that 100%.
Yeah.
Yep. That was one of the reasons, one of the district goals we had this year was about, staff health and wellness and making sure that school climate is, positive throughout the year, because again, if our staff feels like they're being taken care of, they're gonna take care of the students. It just, common sense, right? And I'm glad the research shows that.
I'll share
Common sense
it.
is-
It was out of England, but I'll share it.
So that goes along with the thought process, that's a happy worker is a good worker.
Sure.
So if you take care of your people, they take care of you.
Absolutely.
So 10.5 is the budget calendar. I'm asking the board to approve. That's one of the QSAC requirements, is that the board does approve their budget calendar for the year. So you'll see that attached later on in the week, and there shouldn't be many changes to that now that the commissioner has solidified our budget calendar for the year.
And I think I shared that in one of my updates with everybody, just so
I
you
think
know
you
what
did.
those dates will be, but then it'll be official when it comes out here.
And then the rest of the items are typically standard monthly, but I'll kind of run through them just for the benefit of the whole board. We do accept donations on a rolling basis. The board does approve those donations. So you may see something monetary, you may see something that's a tangible item, but anything that rises over a certain dollar amount, usually anything over $500, I try to make sure the board is apprised of what that donation is. Training and travel requests will be attached as soon as we have that report final. So again, anyone that wants to go to an event outside of the district and its professional development, you will see that for board approval. The board has to approve any monetary costs that are associated with travel, such as mileage reimbursement, registration fees for an event. The property that we are disposing of, which would be 10.8 this month, is technology equipment. So again, she has a certain amount of items, let's say Chromebooks, for example. Once I get the board's approval to dispose, typically we'll take anything that has a monetary value left, and we'll put it on GovDeals and allow that to kind of go through that process to see if we're able to get anything monetarily back for those items. If no one bids on the item, it is kind of like a public bid that closes, so that we'll get the highest available funds for what's out on GovDeals. If no one bids on the item, then we typically do just dispose of the item after that.
Is there a market for the Chromebooks after the 4 years that the kids have them? I just know that
There are
we.
companies that do.
Yeah, that's what I kind of
Selling them
recall.
in bulk, I think we usually get people that pick up the bulk
Mm-hmm.
stuff on technology just because of the metals and stuff and the devices, and they'll.
Yeah, and when we have to dispose them, say nobody bids on them, do we dispose of them through some sort of recycling? I mean, we
Yes.
don't just throw them in a dumpster. Okay.
Yes.
Does that tend to, the process of going through takes work
It does.
on your side?
There's administrative work.
Does it tend to make sense?
It's only worth it when you get something out of it, but, we have an open and active login and everything, so kind of all the back end work's already been established, just
Okay.
uploading pictures.
Okay,
and
so it's not, now,
We just make sure it just says at your own risk, we don't
now it's worth
certify that
it,
it's working.
after you've done the legwork.
Yeah,
It can be worth it.
yeah.
Okay.
10.9 is the bills list. I know there was a discussion at the last meeting about putting in some additional description. And it's funny because when we have looked in my office at the attachment, prior to my maternity leave, we did have the description. Somehow it was lost over the past, few months of last spring. So I can just put that detail back on.
Great,
And
thank you.
it's not a heavy lift. So that'll be attached later on this week. Again, we'll be certifying monthly financial reports. It may be November and December, it may just be November, but that'll come later on in the week. We'll have that attachment. I think that covers it. If you have any other questions.
Anything at this point?
Thank you, Katie.
Yes, thank you. I don't know, is there anything we have to address? I know we have the field trips list typically on community relations, and that's something we'll approve next week.
And just so everyone knows, the field trip is Key Club, which is the student arm of the Kiwanis Club, service organization, and this is their state conference where there's a lot of professional development. They get keynote speakers, they have elections, they have proposals. It's just a great experience for kids at Key Club. So.
All right, we don't have any delegates reports for this meeting, so I will move to a call for a motion second to adopt resolution 1/2026 for an executive session to discuss matters reflected in the attached resolution. The board expects to be in executive session for approximately 45 minutes, though we'll try to be faster. And upon return to public session, action will be taken. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
All right. Motion, Tara, second, Andrea. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay.
So that was our first motion. soon as I get the thumbs up, I give you the thumbs up.
There it is. All right. All right. I'd like to get a call for a motion second to reconvene public session. Can I get a motion? Dan, can I get a second? Stephen? Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any abstentions or noes? All right. Can I get a, calling for a motion and a second to appoint Meryl Mezzacapa for the Califon Borough Tewksbury Township Board vacancy through December 31st, 2026. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
All right. That was close.
I'll take the second if
Okay.
he wants the motion.
Right. Brian can have the motion. Andrea will take the second. So open for discussion. I think I would just like to point out that I think we're fortunate to have Meryl as a candidate. Some of the things that she highlighted was really her desire to see this district thrive, her value that she places on education in terms of her skill set, the ability to synthesize and summarize complex information, which I think, as evidenced tonight, is something we're called upon to do at every meeting, as well as the importance of consensus building in emotional situations, making and explaining difficult decisions. Her advocacy for students stood out to me. Obviously familiarity with the law is also an interesting dimension and something to another perspective to bring to our work as well. And she seems to understand our role as setting the policy and setting the superintendent and administration to see that the district is well run. And I was thankful to hear that despite her competing demands, that her Tuesdays are free and will work for us. So that was certainly some of my takeaways. Her final comment was that she wants to come at this work with heart. So that certainly struck me. Other observations or comments?
I think she was very modest in talking about herself. She didn't mention, she did mention lightly, but that she spent decades as a prosecutor with the Somerset, County, and that she has, she really does care about, law and order and brings a lot to the table. She did mention her deep roots within the community and, as an alumna of Voorhees and sending her son there. So I've known Meryl personally for a few years, and I think she'd be a great addition to our board. And as I said, I think Tewksbury and Califon are looking forward to having consistent representation on the board going forward. So,
Any other comments?
I appreciated the very modest response to what do you want to do here? It's I want to give back. I don't have an agenda.
yes.
I thought that's a very honest answer and appreciated.
I agree.
And just, highlighting, seeing her resume and seeing the letter that she wrote, and then hearing what she said here, I could make the connections back to what she's done on her resume, and she was being very modest and wasn't, highlighting those things on her own. So, very impressive, and I think she'd be great.
And as far as I know, there's no rule on how many former district graduates you can have on the board. Whatever it might be, we might be getting close. Okay. All right. So we had our motion, we had our second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain or opposed? None? All right. Well, Rich, if you will communicate that to Meryl so that she can move her process forward, and then I guess we would be swearing her in next week.
It all depends on when fingerprint background checks come back. So
All right.
I'll be in touch with Meryl. I'll make sure as soon as that happens, that she lets us know. And then if it's before next Tuesday, we can swear her in on Tuesday. If it's after next Tuesday, we can swear her in at first meeting in February.
All right.
Wonderful.
Old and new business. The only thing I'll say under old/new is I had indicated, thank you for all the feedback on the restructuring ideas. I will try and synthesize that in a way that I can push maybe some summary of that out so that it can be for conversation next week, and we can begin to make progress on some of these structural decisions, liaisons, board norms, legal conversations, all those things that we want. That's it from me. Anything else that anyone would like to surface or bring up at this time for potential new business going forward or old business to resolve? Right?
Two old business items, we can get an update from the administration next meeting, next week. One is, what is the status of the arrangement we have with the VOTEC on ground maintenance? We had a proposal, we voted, there was a proposal brought to the board, or voted down. So just what happened as a result of that?
So
I think we got an update on that.
I can fill you in on that real
Okay.
quickly if you'd like.
Sure.
When the board declined to contract with them, they went with a private contractor. They had private contractor quotes, which was what we developed
Our estimate.
our estimate on. So they're with a private contractor now, I believe, through the fall. But I'll check with the timelines. But as soon as they're done with that, we told them we'd be reopen to negotiating that with them and come up with another solution. And we'll bring that to the board at some point.
That was
Okay,
for
so they've
snow
got a
removal.
contract.
Snow removal, and it was also for grass cutting.
Yeah.
One of the things we were concerned about with snow removal was, would the private contractor just throw the snow back onto our
The
property?
logistics, right?
Yeah. So far, they've been okay. We
So
haven't
far, it
had,
hasn't
we have no
been yet.
complaints about what they've been doing, so,
Okay.
so that's good news at least.
Okay.
We would still prefer to have it all under our control if possible, but we'll have to come at a later date.
Yeah, that'll be in the fall, maybe.
Exactly.
Okay. Other one was status next weekend, or sorry, next week is fine, of the SRA contract, or SRA relationship. SRA, oh, thank you.
Sir.
That's a hangover acronym from my old job. Yeah, the SRO contract. would
Yes,
be-
we will get you
Or our
an update.
relationship with, on that would be good.
I will definitely get you an update.
And I have one new business, an idea for the board to consider would be, on the policy front, I know we didn't want to have the working meeting be very vote-oriented, but we could consider first readings followed by second readings. First reading in this working session and the second reading in the action session, whatever we're calling it. And maybe we could process a little bit faster that way than in the past, which had required, January and then February before we could change anything. So I guess throw it out as an idea for the board to consider. Kind of goes away from our idea about what this first working session would be, but maybe it falls into this kind of makes sense. Why don't we take advantage of it while we have the chance?
Well, and actually, when I was on a board of the whole previously, that's exactly what we would do. It would be a working session and then a action session that could move those things when needed. And I guess you're saying
I'm
it,
saying if it was in place now, we
correct,
would
correct,
potentially vote on passing a first reading of a policy.
correct,
And the
during
reason
the
it
work
kind of
session.
is a little different than other things is because the first reading doesn't make it
Binding.
binding, right? So I'm just suggesting we consider first readings in the working sessions if it's, doesn't rub everyone the wrong way.
Yeah, I mean, that could even be the thing that if there were, let's say, a policy where we felt like we just needed more time, information, or deliberation, you could move everything and still work that one if it were needed. But I think to the point of, given the number of policies that we're going to have to work through, it's probably going to require that kind of pace.
So to understand this correctly, you would have the first reading at your working session
Like tonight, yeah.
and vote on that.
Yeah,
the action
it's
session.
only something different than a normal session because we're using it that way. We're not, we've decided not to take votes, or many of them. I mean, we did take a vote just now. But we have doing everything that's required of us. We have public comment, it's out, it's in public. We could vote as much as we like this meeting.
Good,
I don't advocate that we turn it into two voting, so-called hardcore voting sessions, one right after another, but where it made sense.
Yep.
We had already discussed if like an emergency thing came up, hey, Katie's got this thing, it's due on, this Friday, and we can make $2 million,
Right.
you know, we probably would go, no, we're gonna have to pass it because.
Anything else on older new business? Tara?
I just want to let you guys know, when the delegates, next Thursday, it's virtual, it's our Hunterdon County, and we have 2 experts coming in, and the topic is HIB and mental health, supporting safe and healthy schools. So you can do it from the comfort of your living room, and just register through New Jersey school boards, and then at 6:45, just log on and you can participate. But it should be a good program, and it's one that is relevant for all the work we're doing, especially when we were talking about HIB earlier, so.
And I'm sorry, Brian, did you have one more item?
No, that was it.
Oh, okay.
That was it.
Sorry.
The-
Phil?
Real quick, FYI, Governor Sherrill has recommended Dr. Lily Lau, L-A-U-X. I think that, I'm not sure how to pronounce L-A-U-X. I'm completely Lau, as the next Commissioner of Education. She is the principal of the ILO group and hails from, she is the former Deputy Commissioner of the Texas Board of Education. Lily Lau, FYI.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no further old or new business, can I get a call for a motion and a second to adjourn? Can I get a motion? Rich, can I get a second?
Sure.
Andrew? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Stephen, that wasn't an
That
abstention.
was a wait, no, that
Oh,
was
okay.
a.